Everyone, to night number 3 of Board of Selectmen budget workshops. Our department head for Parks and Rec isn't here right now, so to get you guys out sooner, why don't we invite the library to come forward. We have 2 seats to join us at the table, if that's okay, and thank you.
Just so you know who we've brought with us.
Yes.
We have obviously Alan Gray, Director, Melinda Gasford, Jay Bennett,
Perfect.
Caroline Lopez needs no introduction, and I'm Tammy Slode.
Good evening.
Hi. Good evening. Thank you for having us. We are very pleased to be here to talk about the budget, and thank you all for your hard work on the whole budget process. It's painstaking and long, and we are grateful for all the time that you put in. It's obviously an exciting year going into Darian's 200th birthday. And we are coming off we had a birthday this year. We turned 125, which was exciting.
You look great for 125.
Thank you. This year, another thing we'll be celebrating, although Ellen will not want me to say it, is we will be celebrating his excellent leadership and many contributions to the library before he retires in August. But there's a lot more that he has to do before then, so we're looking forward to that. One thing, it is to his credit and the entire staff that the library was just named a 5-star library by the Library Journal. There are only 85 libraries in the country that have the 5-star designation out of 9,214 libraries, so that is pretty tremendous. There are only 2 in the state of Connecticut. This is based on performance data, including visits, circulation, Wi-Fi usage. So this is an exciting recognition of the excellence of the library, which is only possible due to the public-private partnership with the town of Darien and the Friends. And so it is a nice recognition of that.
Congratulations. Who's the other library in Connecticut?
Greenwich.
Okay.
So everyone associated with library is obviously grateful for this ongoing support of Darien taxpayers. And before we look forward to next year, I just want to take a few minutes to report back to you about what the Friends have been doing to deliver on their side of the partnership by making investments which will improve the operations of the library, bring enhanced services to the community, and reduce costs to the town. In last year's budget presentation, we said that the Friends would make capital investments totaling $2.3 million over 4 years. This capital commitment, which now totals $2.45 million, began in the spring of 2019 and will run through 2021. This is approximately 25% of our investment funds. So we have spent $1.75 million to date. The Friends spent $1.15 million on the expansion and renovation of the library's geothermal well system, which has already reduced our electricity consumption by 5%. In January, we completed construction of new sidewalks leading to overflow parking areas for $100,000. We have replaced the upper level heat pumps in the HVAC system in the library this fall, and we will replace the lower level pumps next year, and that's a total of both areas of $850,000. And in April, we will spend $350,000 to replace the Linkso book sorting system. This expenditure has allowed for a $28,000 reduction in maintenance costs in the 2021 budget. So each year, in addition to spending $700,000 that we raise from our annual fund, we also bring over several $100,000 from the investment fund into the Friends operating budget, which, as you know, covers programs, content, all that kind of thing. We're fortunate that the strong performance of our financial investments this year has offset some of the capital spending that I just mentioned. This budget reflects no FTE increases or new initiatives. The drivers of the budget, as Caroline will explain, are the increase in the town retirement contribution and 2 one-time items. The increase in the town retirement, and then 2 one-time items, which Caroline will. Yep.
Can I just ask, you mentioned that the Friends are going to replace the book sorting system, and that's going to reduce maintenance costs. Can you tell me how that is? Explain the connection.
Yeah, so there's a maintenance contract in the town budget that we pay annually.
I see.
And when we replace the system, even though we're using Friends funds, we won't have to pay that for a full year.
So will it come back next year?
Okay.
So we'll come back, but we get a year off from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the incremental contribution to the pension, Kate explained last night that we changed the actuarial table and lowered the investment rate assumption. So the increased contribution, is this like a catch-up amount based on the applying of the new math? Or does the contribution level stay at this level going forward?
Their employees are in our pension system.
No, I know, but
we tell them what to contribute. So it's the same as the towns. This is basically a new baseline.
All right, so it's a new baseline. It's not like a lump sum to catch up for all the prior periods that had been. Okay.
Could I just ask a few questions, because you mentioned capital? Is the new geothermal system now a closed loop system?
Yes,
Because the other one was not, correct?
right.
Yeah.
And that was the reason for ending up having to redo it, because the water
Corrosive.
ended up being more acidic
Corrosive.
than expected.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
ruined your system. And you answered the question I had on the materials handling system, or material sorting. It's a book sorting system.
Yes, it's when you do the returns at the front, when you drive up, or when you walk in library, how it goes down conveyor belts and is sorted into bins, which are then put away.
Okay. With regard to your endowment or your fund, given that you talked on page 8 of your report about so much going over 4.88% of the average the last 3 years of endowment, that would sort of mathematically indicate your endowment's approximately $9.5 million. What is the level today?
Pretty close to the number.
It's pretty close to that. I think it's
Pretty close
high
to
8s
9.
right now. Yeah.
Okay, and this is after you've brought over not only your normal Friends contribution, but a contribution of $465,000, but also money for the capital expenditures.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Caroline.
so I will explain the major drivers of the budget. When we started our budget development this year, we basically built a baseline budget, which is a standard increase of 3.17%. And then separately, we have 2 one-time expenses in this year, which makes our total increase 6.28%, which, as you know, is an unusually large increase for us. Even with that factored in, our average over the last 10 years is still 2.64%. So let me go through the details of our baseline budget first. So staffing and benefits are always the most significant component of the town budget for us, and this year is no different. They represent 87% of our total budget request. So within salaries, we've included a 3% merit increase for staff. This is our only increase as we do not have steps. So that is built in. And then in line 1, if you look at administrative salaries, you'll see an offset. That represents the new director, who is anticipated to start at a lower salary. We have a small initiative in support, line 8, to raise the part-time salaries of our materials management staff from $13.50 an hour to $15 an hour. They manage the system that Tammy spoke about. They know how to use our cataloging system. They receive all of the same staff trainings as everyone else. Many are long-term Darien residents. Many hold undergraduate and advanced degrees. So we would like to increase their salaries to $15 an hour. Even factoring in all of those changes, our total increase in salaries is still only 2.04%. And then within benefits, as we spoke about, the largest change is the increase in town retirement, which for the library was 38.9%. The reason you see only 30% in line 11 is because a portion of that line, as well as our other benefits, are paid on the Friends budget for those of us that work in fundraising and in programming. So because those things are funded by the Friends and go to Friends operating, we move a percentage of all of our benefits and salaries to the Friends budget. So that's salaries and benefits. If you look down to building management, it's relatively stable. You'll see that we reduced, as Tammy referenced, the electricity in our current year because of the upgrade to geothermal. And then also, there are just some slight increases in building operations and maintenance services, just some contracts that go up every year. And repairs are up slightly because everything's 10 years old now, but in general, it's stable. And everything in library support, all of those lines, we've been tracking really closely for the last several years. We know what it costs to run all of those lines, so that is very stable. And then risk management is a number that we receive from the town. So that is our baseline budget. And then we have 2 one-time expenses this year. The first is accrued vacation time. So upon his retirement, Alan will receive a payout of vacation time, which adds 2.16% to our total budget request. Effective July 1st, just so you're aware, we've modified our vacation carryover policy to prevent such accruals in the future. I will say that no one else is even close to that, and we're very happy to encourage staff to take more vacation for any number of reasons. And we'll be managing any future liabilities within the normal scope of our budget, as we have for many years until now. And then the second thing is the request for a new truck for snow plowing. So in 2013, we purchased our first truck with town funds. Prior to that, we were paying over $20,000 a year for snow plowing. But now we do all of our own snow plowing, so that investment paid for itself, within 2 years. This year, when it went in for service at Public Works, they told us that we probably have 1 year left for snow plowing because the trucks just get so beat up. So if we purchase a new truck next year, there's an option for the town to be able to use the vehicle as a normal truck. If we delay it a year, then it might just be completely unusable. The other scenario could be that we trade in the truck. The value is about $8,500, and that would reduce our budget request. So it's really open for discussion. But this year or next year, we'll be asking for a new truck for snow plowing. So those are all of the main drivers. Unless Tammy has anything to add, we're happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you. Mm-hmm.
Just a couple quick questions.
Yeah.
How many weeks does that accrued vacation amount to? How many weeks?
How many days?
How many days?
Days, okay.
I know it is hours. It's 833 hours. Oh, Kate already did the math.
22 weeks?
Yeah. So most of our employees receive 4 weeks of vacation a year, as well as holidays. We're open a lot of holidays, so you see the buildup start to happen. And like Alan's been here for 17 years, so you see the buildup happen like in the early years when it's harder to get out. I'm not seeing this trend with a lot of our newer employees because we are really encouraging them to take vacation.
So the change in policy,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Is there?
We're setting a limit to carry over.
And what's that limit?
It is 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Yep, and I spoke with Lori Dunn, the head of HR, to get a sense of your policies, which vary depending on employee groups, but we felt like that was a good starting point at least.
Are there any employees who are over the 6-week limit at this time?
There are a few, yep.
And what's the plan for
So,
them?
yeah, we've said that they will not lose the time they've accrued, but they can't add to it.
And so you're not thinking about buying them out?
No, that would be, I mean,
That would be expensive.
that's an option, but
No,
yeah. I mean, it's possible they'll work it down too, depending.
Yeah, following on what David's saying.
Yeah.
The 22 weeks are now going to be paid out at today's pay rate,
Yes,
not at the pay rate that they were accrued
Yeah,
at the
they're
time.
accrued.
yeah.
That is not unusual.
No, I know it's not unusual. Just want to make sure everybody understands
Mhm.
what the full impact of the carryover is.
Mhm.
So the new policy is they can only carry over 6 weeks at most.
Correct.
Use it or lose it.
Yeah.
By what date of the year?
We're on the fiscal year, so July 1st.
July
Like we
1st.
said, everything will be as of June 30th.
So
basically.
you said there's some employees that have
There are
accruals.
eight or 10, they're already over the 6 weeks. So essentially, they'll just be frozen in time. And if they happen to go below that for whatever reason, they will only be able to go back up to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And if they don't ever go below that, then they'll
Right.
just leave with what they have right now when they leave.
Do we know the exposure of that?
Of that group, I don't, and it actually fluctuates. I mean, I can definitely let you know what it is right now.
What accounting standards do you guys operate under? Are you under GASB or FASB?
FASB.
Yeah.
FASB. So you don't have to report your compensated absence value? We have to report the value.
No, so every year I give our auditors, everyone's balances as of June 30th, and it
Okay.
goes into like a liability
Yeah,
line,
that's
but
what I'm
yeah.
talking about. So maybe you could provide that information to the board of selectmen,
Yeah,
so
for
we
sure.
can have a sense of what the exposure is.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it fluctuates. We have someone going to New Zealand for a month, so he's gonna be using some of his vacation, but yeah, I can tell you what it is
Okay.
as of now. Yep.
So Kate, to just educate the Board of Selectmen, the town's policy, can you describe the town's policy?
Our current policy is that employees can carry 2 years' worth of accumulation over at June 30th. So that would mean if you earn 4 weeks a year, you can carry 8. If you earn 5 weeks a year, you can carry 10.
So that would be the max exposure for us, for those, any employees that aren't grandfathered is 10 weeks.
And, because say, just to use Alan's date as an example, retiring in August, somebody who had 10 weeks at June 30th and didn't take any vacation in July would earn another, at 5 weeks, you'd earn another like 2 days
Mhm.
in July, so you'd have 10 weeks in 2 days. If
Okay.
you retired in December and took no vacation, you'd have a little bit more.
Yeah.
As you know, we did propose last year a budget item to begin to, for the non-represented employees, to eliminate that and buy everybody down to 5 weeks.
Mhm.
We still do want to do that, not as a budgetary item this year, but we believe we should have funds in the budget to do that.
Okay. Okay.
We'd have to negotiate a change with the unions.
Yeah.
And we've tried it so far.
And the accrual is required under GASB.
You have to report, we have to report
Right.
in accordance with GASB standards at June 30th. We have to report the value of any compensated absences on our books at that date. So if you look in the audit report, you'll see under the liabilities, under debt,
Right.
in the footnotes, you'll see the value of the compensated absences.
Because I thought under FASB, you had to record as a liability vacation accrual.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But you didn't do that.
No, that ours
Did you
goes
say
in as a
you did?
liability, yeah.
You have recruited.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I take even a more basic question as far as the employees of the library? And these terms were negotiated not through anyone of the town, correct? That's all
Correct.
done
Correct.
by the library.
Correct.
And again, they're, in this situation, the vacation time is paid at this rate, not when it was passed
When it was
on.
earned, yeah.
Earned.
So it brings up, it brings up a bigger issue for us, which I began to discuss when we met at the library, to talk about beginning to work on an agreement between the town of Darien and the public library on ownership of responsibilities. And, from our perspective, we would like to work with you to kind of set limitations that the benefits that get paid out for library employees are no more generous than the benefits that we would be paying town employees. And, hopefully we can have good discussions around that, certainly if the Friends wanted to augment benefits of any kind. But it puts us in a little bit of a difficult position with our own town employees, when we're looking at, for example, we're all in the process of changing our vacation carryover policies. But even looking at merit increases. You know, your merit increases this year are significantly above what the marketplace is for town employees. And maybe, Kate, you can share a little information about that.
Well, CCM provides a report every month on the average negotiated settlements for municipal employees and the average arbitrated settlements. So we tend to look more at the negotiated settlements, and that number right now is a little over 2.1%. I think it's 2.13% is the average for fiscal '21 for negotiated settlements.
Yeah. So those things to keep in mind so that we can have some bit of equity between the town and the library in terms of what the town's obligations are under our grant and hopefully a grant agreement going forward.
Sure.
The truck.
Yes.
So you had mentioned to me that there was some discussions between Vic and guys at the town garage about the repurposing of the truck, and Kate, I don't know if you've been part of that discussion?
I was aware of it, and I made a note to talk to Brian and see what he had planned to do with it if we took it on and how long it would last for whatever use he was planning for it, so that we could determine whether or not that made sense for us to do.
From my review with you of the budget, all the vehicles that department heads need are accounted for in the proposed budget.
They are.
So I would say take advantage of the trade-in value and, you know, offset some of your costs for your budget request this year. I think that would be the smart thing to do, because it really sounds like the truck maybe has a year left.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't think that's a wise investment on our part necessarily to take on a truck that we then know we have to replace next year. So I don't know if anybody has comments or questions about that. But.
Well, I thought a truck would be capital.
It would be capital for us.
Capital for us, but it's in their grant.
Okay. And
I think it's in their grant because a number of years ago, as it pointed out, they looked at the cost of paying an outside service to do their snow plowing versus the cost of purchasing a truck and having an employee do the snow plowing. And it was more cost effective to buy the truck and have the employee do it. So the Board of Finance at that time agreed that they could use the town grant to purchase that truck. Because basically we were swapping an operating expense. So it's the same, I think their reasoning is the same in putting it into the grant this year.
As someone who plows a parking lot every year for the last 20 years, it's a hard number to find, $21,000, even on our worst year. I got 2 acres to plow. I mean...
So we might be able to reduce that by $8,500. Are you comfortable with us doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I'm sorry, we're going to do 8,500?
We're going to do... 26. My fingers aren't working fast enough.
No.
Minus 8,500 equals 28,000. Okay. All right, board members.
Quick question. What I don't see in here, and maybe I'm not looking in the right place, is there a line for revenue, fines, rentals, and so forth?
Yep, so all the revenue goes into the Friends budget.
Okay.
Because it supports, like the fines are paid on the books that the Friends purchase and all of that. So that's all that's not in the town budget.
Okay. Do you have an idea what that is?
Yeah. Fines are around $40,000 a year. Yep, fines and replacements are $40,000, and then we also rent out a lot of our rooms. The cafe pays a rental to us. Those are the major revenues, other than fundraising, obviously.
So you said fines are 40,000?
Fines are, well, the total is 55,000.
Oh,
So
okay.
fines are 40 and replacements are 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And rentals is a separate number?
Rentals is about 36,000.
Okay.
Mhm.
line 17, building management, the electricity, gas, and fuel, the big change from last year to this current year is the geothermal savings?
It's partly that, and partly we had an Eversource loan the past several years that ended midway through last year. It was when we replaced the LED lights.
Right.
So that ran off midway last year.
Okay.
The electricity it's actually running like 10% down right now, but we budgeted a 5% decrease.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any more board questions? Questions from F&B or Board of Finance? Dan?
Okay, following up on Chip's question, and this is going to go to Jen, but maybe go to Faith. Okay, so is the grant, from the town's perspective, is the grant necessarily 100% operating, or can the town parse that grant as it thinks about how to fund it?
I would say, absent an agreement with the library, it's up to the town. But I would also say, it has traditionally been operating, and it is a grant that we give them. We don't get anything back if they don't spend it all. So, think of it as, if you don't think of them as some kind of town agency, if it was a totally outside agency, we give them a grant,
It'd be hard to capitalize part of the
well,
grant. if you don't have-
it's more that we lose control over it once we turn it over.
Exactly.
So-
Okay, thank you.
May I just follow up on that? So the assumption or the discussion has been that it's for operating. Do we just verbally sort of say that?
This truck is basically the only
Well,
capital that
like-
I recall us ever.
But otherwise,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in exchange for an operating cost. It was more cost-effective for them to buy a truck than to pay a
Oh,
service,
yeah, no,
right?
just in general, I
Yeah,
meant more of the
yeah.
bigger picture, not independent of the truck conversation, but
Right.
just a
Yeah.
bigger picture that this would.
Yeah. And for the new members, are you all generally clear about, although not outlined in an agreement, that the town pays for operating costs and the Friends pay for books and other capital investments,
Yeah.
aside from this truck? Okay. Okay, any other questions from F&B, Board of Finance, on the library? Martha?
Actually, I kind of didn't quite understand the salary discussion, 3% versus 2%, but are we talking about the two people that are may experience a 2% rise, but they also have a step increase, so it's more than 2%?
Well, we have, so if they're union members, yes, they do have a step increase, but we also have a good number of non-union employees who, that 2%, 2.5%, whatever it would be, that's all they get. There's no steps for people like Jen and I.
Got it.
Or Jen and me. Me.
Right.
Don or Jessica would call me when you told me.
Okay, with no other questions, that's great, thank you. And we
Thank
really
you.
always appreciate your diligence in the budget. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and talk about the prior year. Maybe going forward, we can talk about trying to get budget information so that Kate can include it in the budget document.
Yeah,
That would be worthwhile pursuing.
Yep.
definitely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your board
Thank you.
members coming this evening.
Thank you.
Congrats again on the award. That's pretty cool stuff.
Do you need us?
Okay.
I can put it in my pocket.
Put paper on top of
Jamie, we're not expecting him tonight.
Oh.
But Ed is here.
Great, we'll go to Ed, yeah. Okay, we're going to move on with our next budget center, our Public Works. Ed Gentile is here. Don't get too comfortable back there, Ed, come on up.
Back from Boston. Would you fly in?
You seen me drive?
No. Too fast?
Popped into my head.
I just can't believe it. Buying a truck and having somebody run it, maintain it for 4 or 5 days of plowing and maybe 4 days of salting makes any sense.
It's like how much What else do we use in transport?
Hi, Ed.
It's a little different.
Trust me, you're going to be happy. We sat in those for hours last night, and it wasn't fun, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, Ed will talk about 3 different funds tonight. We'll start with Public Works, which is tab 8, the lady will also get sewer and parking. So tab 8, and the numbers
Start, let's see, page 134. The expenses start on page 134. So, the first section in this budget is management and engineering. That is the administrative staff. One thing I want to point out here is that we allocate the costs of the management staff, that would be Ed, Darren, Anthony Tacone, and the administrative assistants. We allocate them amongst the 3 funds that Public Works control. They're not the same allocations for each person. It depends on what their duties are. So some are 50-50, some are 75-25, and there's even a couple that are like 75-15-10. One of the big cost items in this budget is professional services. That includes surveying Hollow Tree Ridge Road from Camp to Hanson. And Ed, how you try and do how much a year in terms of surveying?
Right. So we try to get approximately 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile of town right-of-way done. As long as we don't, and you'll see there's some in here, the quote-unquote unfunded mandates that we get from them. So the MS4 is
The MS4 is in there as well. And the
Yeah.
other thing that's in there is the weather report. So if you ever see a tweet out from the town of Darien about the weather, that's where it's coming from. Other than that, there's not a lot of civic. Dues and licenses are the professional licenses that Ed and Darren need to maintain. The next section is the, I think the
Anybody have
biggest-
questions
sorry.
on management and engineering?
We have 3.15 FTEs here?
Yes.
Okay. And the transfer in this year's budget of 10,000 was a salary increase?
Yeah,
That would have been non-union salary increases.
And the
Okay.
town hall salary.
Yeah. So the next section, roadway and walkway maintenance. I just want to point out here, remind you that the Public Works contract expires on June 30th. So you don't see as much of an increase in these salaries as you might like in a town hall union position because the contract is open. So we are budgeting these people at the grade and step they will be at on July 1st, but there's no increase to the grid. Okay?
Existing contract.
Right, so, okay. So.
But on that, because you leave it overtime salary back in 2017, why was it so high?
Probably had a lot of storms. Winter.
Okay, just asking.
So in that budget, this is one of the,
What,
that
line 5?
Line
overtime?
5, overtime. It's one of your bigger crapshoots.
Yeah.
So if I put the numbers down right, we're estimating 7 storms that will be plowed at time and a half and 11 at double time.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of way.
So, so the lesson here is to pray for snow between 7 and 3 on Monday through Friday. Sunday storms are really expensive, storms before 7 a.m. are very expensive.
Holidays and Sundays.
Holidays and Sundays, yeah.
We've had quite a few on Saturdays.
Yeah, well, this winter's been a bust so far.
Yeah, right.
Less expensive, I should say.
I was going to say bonus, but.
Yeah.
That's how I view it.
So the motor fuel and lubricants, this provides the motor fuel for all of the town, except for, there's some instances where you'll see specialized things like the departments that have boats when they have to buy it elsewhere, but this is generally everybody, we bid it. We are part of a consortium that bids the gasoline, so we did experience an increase in the price this year when we bid it.
Maybe you could talk a little bit, Ed, about the reduction in streetlight maintenance. You might recall that we undertook a project to convert all of the town's streetlights to LED.
Yep. And with that conversion to LEDs and the purchase, we locked in with a maintenance contract with Tanco. They've been great. They were keeping us up to date on the ones that have been going out. Every 3 to 4 months, we would get a list, and I'm looking for 4 or 5 or 6 repairs, because the company that's coming down, they're coming out of Middletown. Once they get here, they're going to charge us travel time, so I try to give them a full day's worth of work.
Sure.
But I found that we could track them just as easy with our Q alert system. So I renegotiated the contract, and we took a pretty big reduction in that line item this year. They were actually happy to talk to me about it, that they didn't think we were fully using their software. And this was one of the first that they've done this way. So kind of a new thinking out of the box for them too.
Great.
Yeah, the year-to-date, 6 month on that expense line is only $3,000. So we obviously brought it down.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's one that's necessarily,
It may not be halfway, but it
yeah.
gives an indication.
yeah,
Right?
but it could be so misleading. I just, really do think, electricity, I'll just point out that, with the solar panels, we do expect some savings, but because they've only been in operation for a short time, Ed was very conservative in his estimate of the savings. We should be able to project better next year. Potable water is up because we are using the wash bay at the Public Works Garage to wash our trucks. And the decrease in tires, you'll see this if you stay on the board long enough, you'll see this cycle through. Every so often we have to buy tires for the loader, and those are really expensive. We did that last year. Or actually, we did that this year. Next year, no loader tires.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Yep.
Any other questions on roadway and walkway maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where do I look for sidewalks, like maintenance, installation? Is that under
Maintenance and
paving?
installation, well, installation would be under capital.
Oh, okay.
Maintenance,
Is that under?
under paving it?
That's where I would take it out of, to do repairs, spot repairs.
Under paving services?
For a quick repair, whether we, rip it up and we top dress it with asphalt or something. But I'll use the sidewalk capital account if I needed to go out there and take up panels and replace them, remove a tree stump, if you will, and then redo the whole section. I would pay for it out of the capital.
So I think it depends on the kind of.
Yeah, because some walkways are asphalt, some are concrete.
Sorry, can you go back on facility repair? What was that?
Yep. Facility repair. That's for the garage. That is cost of maintenance.
It's brand new.
Right, so clearly we had huge numbers and then,
Back down.
We took something out of there
In
a few years ago.
1819, we split out the equipment repair and maintenance.
There you go.
So if you look one
Yes,
line
if you look
above,
one
it's
up.
zeros.
okay,
Yeah.
got it, makes sense.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to waste management.
The transfer station. Let's see.
The
Again,
happiest place in town. Everybody's there.
Exactly.
There's some personnel in here, but the majority of the cost, that's our contract with city carding. And, if you want to ask questions, Ed is much more familiar with the contract than I am.
I'd be interested in the budget increase in tipping fees.
In the revenue?
Yeah, because when I had asked Ed before, we charge a little bit more, which is causing people to go to Bridgeport. So I was a little surprised to see that big of an increase for us.
50,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't,
Line 8.
If you look at our history,
thought it went back to last year's actual of almost 500,000.
last year's actual was
So I bumped it up.
500,000.
Oh, okay.
So that's, we were looking at the history.
Fair enough, yeah.
I think that's how I gauged it. I didn't take the full 100,000. I figured there'd still be people that still come here. It's still cheaper to drop off here than to go all the way to Bridgeport.
Oh, sure.
Is it possible that 1819 was an anomaly?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, I guess we'll see after this year.
Just on line 3, for your refuse disposal permits, you just expect no one else will, there won't be a single other family who wants a permit?
You know, we usually look at these things and look at the history. If we're not making a change in the rate, we look at the history, and, you know, if you look at last year, 282, that 280 number is pretty good. I don't think we see wild variations
Yeah.
in the number of people getting permits.
It's pretty steady anywhere between 76 and 7,800 each year.
We might see in a few years, when the developments are done.
Okay, good
an
point. We'll
uptick
wait
in
till
that.
then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Although I would say those,
Other neighbors.
they're probably going to be having that through their,
Service.
you
Yeah.
know, the
Building.
landlords.
Building.
Yeah,
But we have the swap shop.
we do.
It's the best place.
Yeah.
Can't get in, if you don't.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think what's interesting in looking at the revenues over expenditures for the transfer station is that, you know, a number of years ago, we tasked the committee, that's now the Sustainability Committee, to look at how to, you know, just to look at the financial operations of the transfer station and how to optimize, if you will, through a variety of measures. And, you know, you can really see, I think the benefit here is that, you know, we're bringing in almost $800,000 of a, you know, $1.26 million budget. And that's a pretty good coverage of your operating expenses, in my opinion, if you wanted to look at it that way.
Question?
Yes.
Hazardous waste disposal, isn't that paid for by the people that do it? Is there a town hazardous waste that, because it doubled, I'm just curious.
There is
Hazardous-
a
The
The
line
hazardous
10,
waste
line
disposal,
10.
line number 10.
On 137.
And it
House-
stayed the same as last
As
year.
last
She's looking
year.
at from
From
18,
18.
19.
I reduced it, almost cut it in half.
So our history shows 5,000 in 16, 17, 4,300 in 17, 18, 3,800 in 18, 19, and now up to 65, almost 6,600.
It's paid by what the town
It's what we-
residents
what-
bring.
what they
actually.
bring.
Yeah. Other towns can come to our area, but we actually charge back to their town if you do come here. So we're not paying for anyone out of town. The numbers did trend up this past year, so I just, I opted to add in additional dumpster, if you will, kind of playing the role of, we can fill up one, or if we fill up two, we get charged based on the number that we have on site that Saturday.
Okay. Does that help? Okay. Anything else for waste management?
Question I had was on the expense side, number 9, your solid waste disposal services. As I remember from our quarterly reports, the volume of MSW is going down all the time, right?
Yes.
But our costs are going up, so we must be having a pretty strong They must have good step-ups in their price per haul.
It goes up 3%. It's going to top out soon.
Okay.
And I think this is the discussion that, or the request for information by Kate and Jen was to look at our fees that we have too, and that's one of the discussions that we have to have yet.
Yeah, and Kip, this is not just MSW, it's all the other things that we have to haul away. So if we have to haul away, like logs and stuff like that, yard waste, anything that we have to haul away.
Oh, I thought that was another area, maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I understand we have.
It's
to haul-
primarily the MSW, but it is anything else that we have to.
Haul away brush, I know it logs, I know that.
And some leaves, right? Not all of our leaves stay.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Right.
There's a percentage of somewhere around 50-40%. We do have to haul out. We just can't fit them all.
And kind of getting into the minutia here, but Christmas trees. We pick them up. Are we buying a grinder to grind them up? We've done that already.
We put them through our wood chipper.
Your own wood chipper.
Yep.
And
But not the big one.
Not the big one, not the beast.
No, not the beast.
Okay,
I would have put that in the budget if you'd asked.
okay.
David wants it.
I would be all for it.
He loved the
So
demonstration.
the wood
It's
chips
cool.
that come from the Christmas trees, we give them away, we sell them?
Both, if
Both.
anybody wants them, or we use them
Okay.
actually around our transfer station site.
Okay.
We treat a lot of our berms that protect us from neighboring areas, the condos on Hale Court, those type of
Okay.
areas. We use them to kind of buffer the area.
Okay.
So we use them too. They're not a big hit with landscapers because
Right.
they have the pine needles in them and stuff.
Yep.
So we use them around our site to dress it up or to cover it up or build up the berms again.
But the byproduct of spending the man-hours to pick up Christmas trees is worth still picking up the Christmas trees, is kind of my question.
I believe so.
Okay. And then same for leaves. Is that an MS4 requirement that we collect leaves?
Yes and no.
Okay.
They don't want you to have the leaves put out in the town right of way if they're not bagged. And that goes right into your street sweeping and then your catch basin cleaning,
Yeah.
that whole process.
Okay.
So we couldn't do the thing where some towns have that big vacuum that comes along and.
It's awful.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna,
The noise is terrible,
Yeah.
The
even know
the
it's
vacuum,
dangerous.
the vacuum works really, really well when the leaves are dry.
Yeah.
And that usually
And
lasts
they've been
about 2
sitting
days.
for a month.
and you have to
Yeah,
time
wow.
that perfectly.
And it's wet, there's snow.
The process that we have right now, if, for instance, that grinder was something that the town did purchase, we could take the bags. We could take the leaves, we could take the brush, whatever.
goes right in.
Goes right in.
Wow.
The process, though, is to make sure that whatever you're putting through and comes out the other end, you can actually mark it or get rid of.
Right.
Or have somebody that wants to come and take it from you.
Yep.
That's the discussion that we had with the vendor when he brought it down. There's certain things you put through, guys will line up for it. Other items you put through, not so much. So we have to be very careful with that.
I see. Okay.
The big opportunity there is, and we have them here in New England, is the nor'easters. And when they come through here and they
Yes.
rip the trees down, we pay a fortune to get
Okay.
that material taken off site.
Yep. I've been around for a few of those. Okay, so I just always like to continue to ask the questions to make sure that the services that we're providing still are, there's an offsetting benefit to doing that, not just, spending man-hours and equipment, et cetera, to do it. So, thank you. Yes, Jack?
I have 3 questions. First, with the new composting process that we have, with the food
The
product. and
food
that?
scraps?
Yep.
Yeah, food scraps. Is that part of the compost? Where are we showing?
The revenue.
Revenue from that, thank you.
It would be sale of compost. But
Line
are we
6, is it
selling
in there?
No,
We're getting it
there
back.
is no revenue.
It's an offset to an expense, Jack.
Yeah, it's lack of
Yeah,
expense.
and we have, Ed details that, I think, in your quarterly report. I can't exactly remember what our
Okay.
overall savings to date is.
Yeah, what it is cost avoidance.
Cost avoidance. And,
Okay,
um,
fair enough. I mean, I'm a big fan of that, so.
We need to get more people involved, but it is starting
Yeah.
to grow and grow, and it's
Yeah.
going to take a little bit of
Yeah,
time, but
I'm
it's
very
going
happy.
in the right direction.
I'm very happy when I go there and all the bins are full, seriously. That means more people are doing it.
Yeah.
Question that I've had periodically from year to year, since we do arrange, or appear to be arranging for the pickup in April, providing they call up.
Bulky waste pickup?
Thank you. Is there any concept of potentially charging a small fee for that? Because even if we did $50, which I know is just, wouldn't even cover most of the cost, but it's still a lot less than what somebody else would pay to bring somebody in to go and take it. So I'm just raising it and going away from it. And lastly, and I don't know if Avalon is a good model for this, but there's a couple of fee structures, you know, if you're over 65, you get at least one free pass. If you have garbage refuse pickup, you get one free pass. Is there a concept of maybe looking at, now that we're going to have significantly more apartments, possibly looking at a different fee structure for people that are living in the apartments, because they are in fact having their service picked up, but it's not like they're paying for the private collector. So I'm just mentioning it, I know we're years away, but it's a thought process.
The only thing that I would say is anybody that has a permit can still come in and take full advantage of all of the recycling services that we have, mattresses, light bulbs, batteries, textiles, electronics. They can go to the swap shop. So, I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm just raising it. I mean, I volunteer at the swap shop, so I'm a big fan of that. But just a thought process, and I think maybe you answered it with just what you were saying.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions on waste management? All right, moving on.
Next up is public building management. And, as before,
Hello, Chief.
we have some union employees, contract is open. Security services, the increase there is we've added $2,000 for testing the town hall and Mather Center fire alarms. And electricity, electricity, potable water, those all, we're looking at historic averages and basing our budget on that. And what was it, 9? Software maintenance support, we dropped facility dude. It was a software.
I went back and looked at it, I reduced that so that I could.
Because we're going to a different,
I'm going to a
different platform, right.
This it's just starting to get a little expensive, and we weren't getting the benefit right now, so.
But I love the name of the software.
So that's
Yeah,
the whole
that's-
1530? is removing
That's why
that?
the reduction is we're changing the software that they use for the maintenance.
And I did take a small credit in electric for the solar. Their prediction, I think I took half of it, just to.
It's best to be conservative at this point until we have some real historical data to base it on.
When does that begin?
We started.
Oh.
When did it go operational?
2 months ago, month and a half ago. We're all up and running now.
It wasn't as
Police
fast as we
department
thought it
last
was, but.
It is up and running. Your solar's working.
That's top secret.
I didn't notice the lights were any brighter.
It would be good to track that, for the first couple of years to make sure that it was worth all the.
Our bills from Eversource are going to have a breakdown on them, I understand?
Great.
And from our vendor, who's going to charge us the rate that we're supposed to be locked in at.
Good. Okay. Any questions on building management? Okay, we'll move right on.
Okay, then the last section in the general fund is parking. This is Leroy West and the merchant parking lots, Center Street North and South.
I'm sorry, which one's Center?
Center Street, the ones behind CVS and across the street, and Grove Street. So these are ones that are town-owned. The parking fund is where we account for the expenses related to the state-owned lots. So there's nothing too significant here. The increase in professional services is, that's credit card fees, and it's based on our historic cost.
Kate, what is the first line item, services for parking?
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that. Because I made a note in case anybody asked that. We charge the parking fund for the, like we do allocate some of Ed's time and stuff to it. But other people in town do work for the parking fund, such as Gen staff. So we charge them for it.
Fee for service. It'll be a recurring theme.
You'll
this
see that in
year from
sewer
me.
too. The sewer fund pays us, that's more in the it's in the revenue under the tax collector, but we charge the sewer fund for the work that town employees do on behalf of the sewer fund. If we're not already allocating their time there, we charge them.
Is that by an hourly basis that they, how do you create that number?
I'd have to go back and look how I created it a number of years ago. We looked at things like how many checks do we run for them, how many payroll checks, how many AP checks, the cost of the supplies, the time and salary of the employees. So it probably could be updated, but that's what the basis is. Because we do have to defend it.
So it's revenue coming from?
It's revenue, it's coming from the parking operations fund to the general fund.
From the parking operations.
From the state fund to the town fund.
Basically, yeah.
Way to look at
Oh,
it.
from the state fund, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because remember, the parking,
Where it's coming
the separate fund is for the state-owned lots, for
No, I
managing
know that.
those.
I just
Yeah.
want to try to figure out where this was coming from.
Yeah.
Revenue's coming from the state fund. Okay.
Any other questions on parking operations and maintenance? Okay.
Do you want to go through Ed's capital for the first, or to the sewer and parking funds?
Let's go through the sewer and parking and then go to capital.
Okay. So sewer has its own fund, tab is page 6, tab 16. So in the sewer administration, that is, there is one full-time employee in the Public Works Department who's allocated there, and then we have shared time of other employees, facilities manager, Ed, Darren, that we charge there, and one of the admins. I didn't go back and look at what the increase was for in professional services, so. Do you have that, Jen?
No, right now.
Yeah.
Unless you know.
What the increase is?
Yeah, the increase in professional services.
Legal fees? I added another
Legal,
$5,000
yeah.
to it.
Wait, you're on page 228, line 8?
Yes.
Sorry, what was that again?
It's legal fees. Like if we need to get an easement to do sewer work, we have to pay the attorney.
Like you did recently.
Yeah, like we did recently, yes. Billing and collection, we have to pay for the data, the water data to do the billing. And just, in case you weren't already aware, the sewer fund is self-supporting. The sewer fees cover all the costs. On page 230, the materials and collections, that's the cost to run our pump stations. We have 3 full-time employees. That work at the pump stations, work at the garage. So these are all the costs associated with maintaining and operating those buildings.
How many pump stations?
I don't,
14?
Wow.
There's an interesting field trip for you.
yeah. Yeah, if you're
Any takers?
at all claustrophobic, I got to go, and I would only go down so far. It just, you know.
I'll take your word for it.
You should do a tour of the facility, right?
Yeah.
We cleaned it before you went there, too. So.
You'll have a new appreciation
I
of
bet.
of our staff who does that work
I bet.
every day.
Yeah. The big nut here is on page 231, those are the fees we pay to Stanford for treatment. It's based on our flow percentage, and Ed can give you a little bit more color into, I don't get to go to those meetings anymore because I used to get so mad at Stanford over. So,
I bet.
Doesn't mean I don't.
yeah.
So you talk a little, yeah,
Well, since we don't have a wastewater treatment plant in Darien, we have to send it over to Stanford. And our fees are based on the percentage of flow from Darien that goes through the treatment plant. So every year we do every year we do an invoicing where we go through and we look at their budget. We apply the percentage, roughly speaking, and through their capital projects as well. I get to go through all of those to make sure those projects are actually applicable to the treatment facility. We're not
And you have-
taking care of their piping in North Stamford or anything like that.
Right.
It's just the stuff that's associated with the treatment of our effluent.
And you have to go through Ed has to go through their budget as well to make sure that the things that they're going to apply to us are really things that apply to us and not just Stanford residents.
And our flow represents approximately 13%.
It is at 15.8 right now.
Wow.
We added 2 new crossings that were not originally included in the first contract. So we went up a little bit this year.
Okay.
do you feel then to stay constant is appropriate? They're not changing any rates?
What ends up happening now is I'll go through their invoice. It's actually sitting on my desk.
Okay.
I'm supposed to get it at the end of October. I didn't get it until mid-December. So through the budget, through the holidays, through this, I'm just finishing up going through it. I'll adjust this payment so that we get closer to what I should be paying, whether it's up or down.
Okay.
So that when we close out at the end of the year, that number is palatable and something we can handle. That's not a larger number.
Would it be appropriate to make an adjustment before, for this document, after you,
I don't think so.
no, okay.
I
Something that's more,
I think if I told you it's more fluid than you would think it is.
pun intended.
And I didn't mean that either, but it sounded pretty good. It does move. In 6 months from now, they could come back with, they reallocated their bonding, and I get a hit from that. Or we get a notice that their nitrogen credits, which are a good thing,
Okay.
went up from 500,000 to 2.5 million. So we're going to get a benefit from that. So I would drop the number down a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I would work with it that way. And
Okay, fair enough.
Jen's group is really good on allowing me to make those adjustments throughout the year.
Okay.
They send the check to Stanford, and I think Stanford waits at the mailbox for it.
Oh, I'm sure. Because it's not coming here looking for it.
So of the 2.7 million, is there a way to give us a sense for how much of that is attributed to treated flow and how much is attributed to capital improvements at the WPCA facility? Do they bill you in that way?
They do, they break it down. They actually give me all of their administrative sections of their budget, and I go through them all. And then they give me their capital bonding. There's 3 separate ones that they've done, and they just reallocated another one. So I spend time making sure that the money is going in the right place and the projects are being covered. It's hard to say because some of the bonding was like 30 million, and we only owned like 6% of that, because it's only one project in that 30 million was a treatment
I
plant
see.
facility. So it's kind of hard for me to gauge that for
Okay.
you. But we're looking at, right now, somewhere around 13 million in operating and roughly 2 million in capital costs.
Okay.
Then we take 15% of that number. roughly.
Do any other municipalities work with Stamford, obviously, other than Stamford and Darien?
No, we're the only one with an interlocal agreement with them. There's other towns that do what Stamford does. They have the wastewater treatment facility, and other towns bring their effluent to them.
And we obviously like Stamford the best.
Well,
That's where the pipes go.
It's where the pipes go.
Oh, we don't have a choice. Good point. Thank you.
Don't put pipeline? I think so.
Okay, thank you.
The last section.
Yes.
Recognizing that you're going through their numbers with a fine-tooth comb, is there any auditor, anyone else going through their numbers to make sure that this accounting, that what they're pushing our way belongs to us?
They pay to have their numbers audited. I see the bill for it. I see where they take it off, and they don't charge us to do that. I have entertained recently having somebody look at it from our side. Having knowledge of the accounting system in Stamford has helped me get through their budget, so I can recognize the numbers a little better. But there's just some things in there that I'm not comfortable with, so I'm gonna be asking for a little bit of help with that.
But a lot of what we have to do is not checking whether the numbers are valid, it's whether the expense itself is something that belongs in any part to us.
Attributable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Attributed
referring to the
our
pipes,
fund.
if they did something in North Stamford that has,
Right.
nothing to do with us, we shouldn't be
And
charged.
things can
Oh,
find,
nightmare.
especially when they know we're captive to them.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right?
We're captive, operatingly,
Yes.
we are
Right.
captive to their
Yes.
system.
No choice.
That's
So
true.
we don't really
But
have
they're-
much flexibility.
Yeah, but they're obligated to accept it, and we've had that issue fighting with them in the past, and like, you can't turn it off. You can't shut shut a valve, and,
And our agreement says we have to keep coming back to the table till we work it out. And that could go on. This last contract took almost a year. And I thought it was pretty simple.
I actually think it's been much worse in the past. I remember right before you came, when your predecessor was here.
yeah.
It was very, very difficult negotiation.
That was probably one of the most, there hadn't been one in a while.
Right.
Mhm.
And there was some outstanding funds that were pretty significant, if I recall.
We had big fights over the nitrogen credits
Mhm.
in the past. I think the previous administrations in Stamford were, at least, they were more difficult to deal with.
Don't have any idea what you're talking
I
about.
said, Wayne doesn't let me go anymore, so.
So you are considering a third-party review?
I am right now, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did,
Right.
after the last round, I just went through the last couple weeks. It's been
Okay.
in my mind.
So the last section here, page 232, is the overhead. That's the insurance for the sewer fund, employee benefits for the sewer fund. You'll see self-insured retention because we have a deductible. We put this in a few years ago. I know we, like, in the general fund, we took out all the just-in-case monies, but, we had an instance, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where there was a sewer backup, damage to homeowners' property, and the amount of time it took us to be able to get the funding to, reimburse them was too long. So we decided to establish the self-insured retention account so that we would have ready access to funds if that kind of thing ever happened again. So that's what that account is about. And then the last item there, you see the transfer to other funds. That is going to the sewer capital fund. And Ed took a little reduction this year to try and mitigate increases on the sewer use rate.
Okay.
Jamie?
Jack?
On the self-insured retention, if we do not spend that 30,000, does that go to a balance sheet item?
It stays in the sewer, it becomes part of the sewer fund's fund balance.
Okay.
Each fund has its own.
Yeah, I forgot for a second that this was a fund.
Yeah.
In and of itself.
Yep,
So it goes to the sewer fund balance.
right. Every fund
Right.
has a fund balance.
So what's the status of the sewer fund balance?
Very healthy.
So
Wow, there's an answer.
So wouldn't it be possible to eliminate the self-insured retention and ask for a transfer from the fund balance to cover this situation? It would be any more time-consuming to do that?
It took us almost 2 months last time, that's why.
Oh.
That's why Kate had come up
Because
with
it
that idea.
would be a
was
special
good.
I see.
appropriation. The one
Have to
option
go
we had
through the
talked about
RTM.
was, could we just overrun the fund, overrun the budget? Because it's a self-supporting fund. If we go over the budget, there are no consequences like there are in the general fund. So yes, you
Yeah.
could eliminate it and we could just write a check.
So my concern is that, over a period of a number of years, you're building up additional unnecessary funds in the fund balance
Mhm.
that really should be utilized for this purpose. So I understand the objective for creating the fund, certainly.
Or, we could do something like establish a policy that if at June 30, we have not used that it gets transferred to the sewer capital fund, which would help reduce, future years' expenditures.
All right, I'd like to maybe think about that. It just seems, it seems unnecessary to tax for, maybe.
It's not a
it would-
tax, it's the sewer use.
The sewer use fee. Maybe it would be helpful for us to understand how often we have these occurrences that you're backstopping. I don't want to change the process, though. We definitely want to make sure that folks who need the money get the money quickly.
It just tended to drag out,
Yep.
along with the approvals from the sewer commission to give them the money. It took them a while to become whole again.
Okay.
In the sewer capital, we are continuing the pump replacement program. So that's in those pump stations, the actual pumps. And that will just continue. This is one pump that,
This is one pump station? Yes.
so if you see on page 235, you see that is an ongoing program.
These variable speed pumps?
These are the outlying smaller pump stations that we're doing right now. We've kind of hit the 3 big ones, if you will, between Nearwater, Stony Brook, and 5 Mile. We're on to Seagate and Brookside, where we have some problems there, but all the other ones, maybe, I show out years, I'm carrying about 125,000 a year. Once I started getting estimates on those other ones, I possibly could drop that down to something below 100,000, so not to have a program that expensive sitting there, because it's not needed.
And Kate, did you cut the root control?
No. You didn't ask for it. Oh, it did.
Yes, it did.
I didn't cut it. I didn't intend to cut it. How's that?
So, need to go back in?
Got me a little worried there.
So we need a new page
Yeah.
235?
I'm sorry, I don't have that page.
I don't know how that happened.
So,
Kate, you got it?
I didn't intend to
That
cut it.
needs to add back in.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
So 49.5 goes back in?
Yes.
Yeah, that's very important maintenance work.
so it's 995 at the bottom. Okay.
Slip of the finger, sorry. And that was even before I was one-handed.
Okay.
Okay, so,
If we leave that, how long do these pumps last?
Okay. With repairs, maintenance, and changing impellers, they should go for at least 35
Oh,
years.
so that we're not looking at 125 out.
No. I just, when the sewer commission asked me to start doing a straight line proposal and start putting pump stations and work from the biggest ones down to the smaller ones, that's kind of where I try to keep a flat line.
Okay.
And we were able to accomplish those.
Do we still have problems with flushable wipes, Ed?
I'm going to say,
Catbirds.
to the best of my knowledge and belief, no.
Good, okay.
We don't have to do what we used to have to do.
Okay,
Which is.
because you put in the new mulching
Those-
variable speed pumps.
Yeah, well, the impellers, they're sharp, they cut through everything. It doesn't mean you should flush them anymore. Residents that are out there. Flushable does not mean disposable.
Does not mean flushable.
And that's, we're not the only town that had that problem, but we got on it pretty quick, and all of our pumps now have those impellers, which has kind of helped.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, parking. Tab 17, we start with the expenses on page 242. So again, this is the operations of the state-owned lots. Really not much of a change in the administration. That's the bulk of that is the receptionist. It's the bulk of her salary. She runs the parking administration. We do have some overtime there during parking permit renewal season. And then we just have some minor increases in the cost of insurance. Then 244 is our parking rangers. These are the gentlemen who enforce the permits, enforce the hourly parking downtown. And,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, absolutely.
Seems like a large number for overtime
I was just looking at
on a regular basis, but I'm not
Right, but
knowledgeable on
so
this,
they do, if there's a snowstorm, we would have to call them in to do the platforms.
Oh,
And the sidewalks all
you
around the
clear them,
station.
got it.
Yeah, so we're not sending them out late to ticket people,
Yeah, just clarify, thank you.
although it would be a revenue generator.
Just for everyone's information, we continue to operate without an updated lease agreement with the state of Connecticut. It's woefully expired, but there's no indication that there will be a lease renewal anytime soon. I think the state's trying to figure out how they can potentially monetize the train station parking lot still.
It is a little concerning.
Yep.
A lot concerning.
Where does the money from the meters go to?
The pay stations?
Pay stations?
Yeah.
It depends on, well, actually, the money from the pay stations they're all in state-owned lots. So it's part of the parking operations fund. It does not, we don't send any money to the state, but we're obligated, under the lease that has run out, we're obligated to take basically the profits from the operations in the state-owned lots and put that back into the lots through capital improvements.
And the stations, right?
And, well, yeah, I'm including the station, yeah. Yeah, so the money, it all stays here.
Page 244, line 10, the snow removal.
Yes, plowing. We bring in outside companies to do the plowing of the lots when we can't do them ourselves.
We went from 14 to 47 last meeting. That's,
14 was the actual, what we used?
yeah, 14, it just seemed like it was 14,000 in 2018-19, and now you're budgeting 47,000. It seems like a,
We bid it out every year, and we put a practical list of what we think the storms could be.
Okay.
So they can bid on a quantity, if you will. And that quantity usually comes in around 41, 40,000, 47 this time, and that's what I budget for. I generally ever use but half of it, but I have to cover at least the bid that they are contracted with.
okay, so that's bid to an outside service?
Correct.
But actuals tend to be less. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
we are reducing the capital, the transfer to other funds. We had contributed an extra amount to the capital fund last year. So we're reducing that back towards a more normal amount this year. And then the rest of it is
I'm sorry, transfer to capital fund?
transfer to the parking capital fund.
Parking
It has its own
capital.
capital fund. And then the rest of the budget is the overhead medical insurance, employee benefits.
So while we're here, we can talk about the parking capital.
Yes. Yep. So the proposal is to put a sidewalk in the southbound lot. That's the one, the post 53 side. To put a sidewalk that would go down by the, is it just the hill, Ed?
In
Just
the
going down
area
hill?
of the former Myers building.
Yeah, that
which-
would be the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I want to start up by post 53 where I came down the on-ramp.
Yep.
I want to cross over and put something along the fence in the grassed area, then cross back over at the top of the hill, and then go down where the old Myers building was, and then come up along the track side to tie it in.
So it's going to run basically along the edge of the roadway that goes there, right? It doesn't-
The
it doesn't-
track.
It doesn't cross that large gully area.
It would, yeah, it would go along the little hill that goes down. It wouldn't go into that gully
It doesn't
area.
go along the fence. Got it. All right.
It's going to go on the track side.
It will, until
It'll-
it gets to where the old
Parking lot.
Myers building was, and it's going to cross over.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I got it.
I'm going to widen that road a little bit.
Yeah.
To make it safer,
Okay.
cut down some of the speed that goes through there too.
Timeline of that project? Sometime in fiscal, don't say sometime in fiscal year 21.
That would be the easy response now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I would like to get started on it in the fall.
Okay.
That all is predicated with paving, sidewalks, and whatever the utility company is doing to us.
Got it. Yeah, all right. That's
Okay.
it? All right.
Then we have regular capital for the Public Works Department on page 220. It's under tab 15. This is where the print is small. So there's a whole list. I'm just going to run down the top. We start with the Public Works Equipment Reserve. This is replacement of vehicles and the large equipment. We try and fund this on as level a basis as we can, scheduling out the equipment over a number of years. 230 is what we need to fund this year to keep up with that. Next, sidewalk rehabilitation. Ed, how many, I don't have my notes with me, how many feet or miles does that get us?
I'm sorry.
I know paving is 6 miles this year.
Yeah, it was like just under 6.
Yeah.
The 500,000 will get us close to a mile, almost a mile of sidewalk.
And that's
That
recapping
concrete.
existing sidewalks as opposed to creating new sidewalks.
But, I mean, that's if you just divide it right into the 500,000. What we did do this past September was we went out and evaluated our sidewalks. There are some areas that are going to need repairs. So instead of just going out and putting in brand new sidewalks along the street, I'm going to first address what I think are possible safety hazards, things like that. Could we require that we take down some trees, but these are areas that I think are a higher priority.
So thank you for bringing that up. Timely topic. Has your staff walked the entire town sidewalk inventory?
That was his task in September.
Okay, so that's been
Evaluate.
complete.
Yes.
So, you know, that, for anybody that's paying attention to the discussions with the Board of Education about walking student safety, although there's been no dialogue between the Board of Ed and myself or the town, there's been some dialogue with Chief Anderson. this work is well underway to make sure that our sidewalks are safe. And there'll be more on that coming forward.
Talk about sidewalks on Mansfield Place?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
Yes.
beginning of that.
Sidewalks on Mansfield, so where do new sidewalks?
There are a couple lines down, we've got 75,000.
Got it. Okay.
We're right now in contact with some of the property owners
Okay.
with regards to what we would need to do to get that sidewalk to fit along the eastern side of Mansfield Avenue,
Okay.
with regards to easements, fence relocations, wall relocations, removal of trees.
So is that right now what 75,000 is for?
Is that this year's request?
Yeah.
Yes.
This year's request, Mansfield was last year with Edgerton. This year's request is for the extension of the sidewalk on West Avenue from the Norotan project, the intersection of Norotan and West, east to Fairfield. There's a section on the north side that needs to be put in.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I budgeted for that. So as part of that project, I'll get the contractor, I'll try to get the contractor to work for us and put that section into at the same time.
But we have the money for
In the current year budget.
Mansfield Place to Overbrook section.
Oh, okay.
That money is there.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
Yeah,
already in.
that's
in.
This is for a different.
This is for a
This
different
number is for a
section.
different project.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so $5,000 for tree replacement. We talked about the new sidewalks.
Did you leave that in, Kate?
Pardon?
Did you leave that in?
I did, left that in. I'm sorry, I told you today I took out the trees, but I left the tree replacement
Okay.
in.
Thank you.
I think we should always leave the tree replacement in. $75,000 for gymnasium upgrades. It's the town hall gym. We have issues with the windows, with the frames rotting, with the windows cracking. And we had money in the current year's budget, and this would allow us to continue and get some of the work done to make the gym safer, make it more energy efficient.
We're losing a lot of energy in that room, I would say, from windows that aren't insulated.
$170,000 for town hall heating upgrades. I think you all understand why we need that.
It's comfortable in here.
Go out in the hallway. And I think it's comfortable because somebody opened a window before. And then the last thing was this is kind of surprising to me that the Mather Center is not that old, but we didn't put LEDs in it when we built it. So the $25,000 to convert the lights over there to LEDs.
That's a grant program with Eversource. The whole project is 35 or 36,000, and the 25 is our portion of it.
Okay.
Yes.
On that page, 220,
Yes.
there are two footnotes, one star, one with double star, and yet both items up above are double starred. So which one applies to the appropriation through separate bond authorization in fiscal 220?
That is the town hall generator that I don't even see on here.
Fifth line down from the top.
No, the town hall generator's not in there.
I'm just trying to, because.
So it doesn't, it's not there. It's not there. But we do have that on every page, just as the footnote is on every page.
Right, because anything that was through a separate bond authorization in fiscal 20 is marked that way. It could be on different pages, like general government has one for Highland Farm.
Okay, well then what about, just so I understand, the double stars, that's funded through special appropriation from general fund, undesignated fund balance.
Right, so you have the Norotan Ed Ledge intersection improvements and new sidewalks current year.
Just explain those words.
So-
I understand simply.
When the budget got to the Board of Finance last year, they selected $500,000 worth of capital projects that they said, we'll do a special appropriation out of general fund balance and fund those $500,000
worth of projects, rather than through the annual budget, they'll fund it out of fund balance.
So that's what,
Right.
okay, thank you.
So the two requests he had that I did not fund were to do some pavement rehabilitation here at Town Hall and to do some curb replacement along the driveway into the transfer station. They were priority 3s. And so I deferred them.
So when you say pavement rehab,
Down front.
that's asphalt?
Yeah, we mill and pave it. We
Yeah.
did the other half. I held off doing the lower lot until
Okay.
after we were done with the dredging.
I think I've lost track of the repairs to the concrete stairs.
We got a price that came back a little bit too high.
Okay?
So we're looking at some different options over there right now, but we'll be doing it this year.
That's this year.
Yeah, the one issue that we have is trying to get people from the lower lot up to the front of the building
There's a
while we're
sidewalk.
doing work on that.
Oh,
There's a
Sorry?
sidewalk.
Of the one out by the street?
Yeah.
What?
I think I have to plan a little bit differently than that.
So that's what
I'll put a
line,
sign there for them, but I'm going to have to do something different.
is that line
Temporary.
3, Town Hall concrete steps for this year?
Yes,
Shuttle
that was last year.
Right, I'm already adopted, okay.
But the price came back a little bit too high, so we're going
Okay.
to do something a little different. Different contractor or something.
Do a T-bar,
okay.
you know.
Could I just a quick
Yes.
question? Sorry.
Yep.
So just so I understand priority, so you get to a priority 2 based on available funds, based on timing, and then do priorities ever move up or out? Just a little bit better understanding, and I apologize, this is my
So
first year, so.
it's not based on available funds. If you go to page 203, this is a new
Yeah.
thing actually this year. So Jen and I we took something that Carl Kilduff had done a number of years ago and we worked it a little bit to come up with the priority matrix. So it's about, is the project mandated by state or federal regulations? Has the Board of Selectmen identified it as a high priority? Is it something that, needs action immediately? And then does it protect the public's health, safety, and welfare? Is it something that, are we repairing existing facilities? Are we buying something new? And so when you take those two different types, the category and the level, put them together, that comes up with the priority level. So something that is, the expense isn't mandated, it's expanding services we already offer, but it's a new program that would be a low priority, priority 3. But something that's important for the health and safety and welfare of the community, or it gives us cost savings, or it increases revenues, those would be high priorities, and level 1, priority 1.
So I think unlike the Board of Ed budget, where they have, I think, priority 1, 2s, and 3s, and you see things roll up over time, it's possible that you would see priority 3 stay as a priority 3 based on this metric. But we would hope that it would still stay in the capital plan so that, we can consider those when we do have available funds.
Jamie, I actually think that where there is pretty similar, you might see 2s move to a 1.
3s can stay.
But for the most part, there are things that I've seen that have been 3s for a real long time.
Got it, okay, thank you.
But
Until they
I do
become
have
1.
3 questions, if I may. On the windows for the gym, we did 100,000 last year, we're doing another 75,000 this year. I'm just curious, how much would it be to do everything that we really need to do? Does this 175,000 cover it? And if it's really more to do everything, would it be more cost effective to figure out what it is and then do it all at one time?
I'm looking at the request. I see 75 and 75, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
It's
that's 75.
already there, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's 75.
No.
So you're going out,
75, and then if you go out,
Gotcha.
yeah, into out years,
That's
there's
almost
another,
almost okay.
there's another
There's another
100 grand
100 out
plan.
All right, but the available balance is already 100,000. So with the 75 that you're adding, that comes to 175.
I will take you at your word for that. I will explain to you why I had to break it up, though.
Okay.
Because of the type of work we have to do and working in an occupied building, my problem is that gym gets used quite a bit. So I have to pick my battles, and right now, I have to take off, you look at the gymnasium, take a look at the triangle piece. I have to take all of those windows out. I have to build scaffolding outside and in. I have to pull all the material down. I have to put new framing up, and then I have to put the new glass in place, and then take it all down again. If I try to do both sides of the gym in 1 year, I think I'll have that gymnasium shut down for 2 months. All right, so I'm trying to be conscious that the facility needs to be used, but the work needs to get done. So I'm trying to space that out.
But the total amount that we just have for the 2 years now will fix the problems that have been identified.
We have a hard number for one end,
Right.
and I want to do both, so now I have the funds to do both
Right.
from the quote that I have.
Yeah, I'm never worried about how we implement it, because I know you're great on that. So it was more a question of, does this solve the whole thing? And it's just then the timing of when you get a chance to do it.
So this will take care of the both ends where the triangles are. If you go into the gym, there's 2 walls of windows.
Yeah.
They're about 12 feet wide, they go towards ceiling. That will be my third part of this.
Gotcha, so we haven't funded that yet.
We haven't funded. I don't see a reason for me to have the money if I can't do the work. And that's kind of why I space it out.
Okay. Then the next question is, and again, we can talk about this on the day that the Board of Selectmen is doing their capital. When I look and see $37,000 for carpet, but then I have a town hall, the town hall capital maintenance and the town hall reservations, I'm just surprised that they become, that 37 is a separate project and not coming out of those reserves. So that's just, we can talk about that some other time. And lastly, the one thing that you probably can answer real quick is, I know sometimes we choose to do asphalt for a sidewalk and sometimes we do concrete. Just out of curiosity, what's the determining factor for deciding which to do what?
I have a sidewalk policy that I've been following. I think Bob had put it together back in '93, revised it in '97.
Okay.
But it's pretty consistent with what I would see other towns doing. And as I tell most people, I'm here to implement what they give me as policy. And I give you my opinion, but it comes down to what is directed by me, by the Board of Selectmen and the First Selectman and the town administrator. So right now, I'm trying to be as consistent as I possibly can be with that policy.
So then I'm asking with the policy.
Okay. Concrete is determined to be placed around town facilities. That includes all the Board of Ed, schools, the police department, town hall, on all major thoroughfares, and they define what those thoroughfares are in the policy. And there are not many of them.
Right.
And I've been trying to stay consistent with that.
Okay, so everything else gets asphalt?
I'm sorry?
Everything else gets blacktop?
That's correct.
It's not, all right, okay. I'm just curious, because I've seen both, and it's good to know that there's a policy, and the policy is determining that.
I mean, I'll go on the record and say it's old, the policy, and I think we all feel that way, but I have to go by something. And you don't want me out there guessing what I should be putting out. I try to be as consistent as I possibly can be.
Okay.
May I ask a question here? Do you feel that the policy should be revisited?
Yes.
I think.
No, just,
I
should bring it to us.
I think every policy should be looked at.
But in your professional opinion, do you
Yeah.
feel there's one in particular?
Absolutely, and I will tell you, in my professional opinion, in my professional career, the sidewalk discussion, I have it every 7-8 years. It just pops up. I dealt with it in Stanford. Here, it looks like they had a nice article in '93 I read. It sounded like I was standing right there listening to the conversation back and forth. People come and people go, opinions change, but it's, I'm trying to be as consistent as I possibly can be.
Well, which is fabulous, right?
So I would say if you feel there should be a different policy.
Oh, I didn't say that. I said it should be reviewed.
Should be- I said if you think there should be changes made to it, then
You've been to court before.
I suggest you propose it when you have some downtime.
Well, I'd actually really like to do that sooner rather than later, as we make plans to spend town monies on sidewalks. We know that sidewalks are such a priority for our residents, and I think you and I talk about sidewalks every 7 or 8 days.
Yes.
So,
And Jamie, thank you for creating the sidewalk commission.
yes, yes.
Which was.
Bert was an active
That
participant.
was my first job in town.
Fabulous, yep. So yeah, it'd be great to take a look at that, refresh it if needed, and, yes, Martha, do you have a
I
question?
was just curious, what's the differential between concrete and asphalt on a sidewalk?
Cost differential?
Yeah.
It costs 3 times as much for concrete than it does asphalt.
But does it last longer?
It doesn't last 3 times as long. And I've heard people say they last 75 years. In a perfect world. And asphalt only lasts 5. Well, that's not true either. So I get both of those feedbacks, but generally speaking, it doesn't deteriorate as fast as the differential between the 3 times the cost.
It does last 75 years if you don't have cold or snow or.
Yeah, 35 years in what, Arizona? I mean, I don't know.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
And it's, Ed has a big workload among all the things that he has to manage, but I will share with all of you that he and I talk often that if the town has a desire to be more aggressive about sidewalk installations, there are other models that we could employ by, putting together a large capital project and contracting out for that service. So we continue to talk about the need for that.
But I do appreciate the answer because it had less to do with financials that I'm seeing it happen and I didn't understand why, so I appreciate the response.
Thank you. Anything else for Public Works, operating capital, sewers, parking? All right. Ed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We learn so much every time you come before us. Learn about soil minerals and.
Does this mean my grinder's off the table?
No, absolutely not.
Maybe at some point in the future.
I made a commitment to the Public Works Committee a week and a half ago that I would make sure that I do a financial run for next year's budget and have it prepared way ahead of time so we can talk about it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen, Chief Anderson,
Police.
Captain Shredders, thank you for your patience. Come on up.
Where are you?
Yes, help yourself to
Police are
sugar.
top 5.
Ah, there we are.
Yes, there's a lot of cookies there.
I know, you guys, come on. I haven't had dinner, so I can't eat those. Hello.
Chief Scruffy down there. How many days left? How many hours left?
Chief Scruffy,
45 hours
yeah.
and 12 minutes.
He's not too eager to shave.
And 40 seconds.
Well, good thing it doesn't come over the summer. You would have had a nice,
Yeah.
suntan around the.
Oh, jeez.
The timing was at least better.
Don't give him any ideas. They're going to ask me to do it again.
July.
Okay.
Okay, so expenses start on page 84.
You guys have different pages than we do, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. We're starting with.
With administration.
Okay.
So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's the administration. It's the wages represent the captains, the chief, the captains, administrative lieutenant, and 1 clerical employee. Some of the increases you're seeing here in the clothing and tool allowance.
Yes.
In the contract, the most recent contract, we agreed to increase the clothing allowance, which is what you're seeing there. We also have, in the uniforms, we have two basic reasons for the increase. One, this is presuming uniforms for the 3 proposed dispatchers. And we are purchasing Molly vest, am I saying it right, Molly? Vest carriers.
Vest carriers.
Yes. So some of our more petite officers or, officers with slimmer hips apparently have difficulty with all they have to carry on the belts. So, okay, let Bob do it.
So there's 2 reasons for the Molly vest carrier. Basically, we have officers that have small waists, and the amount of equipment, like I started in the 90s and Chief Anderson started in the 80s, 60s. As time went on, we started carrying more and more equipment.
Oh, interesting.
So if you have a smaller waist, some people have no room on their belt. And then we have officers with bad knees, bad backs, bad hips. And what the Molly vest allows you to do is take some of the equipment off your gun belt and
That seems wise.
and spread it out on your chest. So it relieves some of the burden on your back and hips, and it gives people more room to carry the taser, all the different equipment that we have, and kind of spreads it all out.
With the 33-inch waist that I have, I can't fit any other equipment. I don't
Stay
wear a
away
gun
from
belt
those
very
cookies.
often. I can't fit any more equipment on. You don't see the belt. It's covered like a bat belt. Everything's on there, so.
So the trend, trends in law enforcement come and go. The trend has been to reduce workman's comp injuries, is to displace the weight up on the shoulders and the chest.
And the collateral issue is the bench seat is long gone in a patrol car, right? So in the day, we had a big wide seat. There was nothing there. You just sat there and your belt didn't hit anything. Now these cars are made where you're getting in with the belt on.
Right, impeded by other stuff.
Right, so these are more expensive than just going with the belt, but it's definitely, I think it's an important thing to do. As Bob said, reduce workers' comp claims.
It's not required wear for anyone. And anyone wants to stay with old school like I would, it's not going to be a required piece of equipment. We're not buying them for anyone. We're not buying one for somebody who won't be wearing it.
Perfect.
We have 4 officers doing a pilot program right now, testing, and the feedback has been really good.
What's the difference between clothing and uniform?
Uniforms is actually the physical uniform.
Right.
Clothing, we provide, for some officers, they get simply a cleaning allowance. And the plainclothes detectives get a clothing allowance.
Oh.
Different departments, I had done a lot of research when we went through the last contract negotiations. Different departments do it differently. Some departments, they just pay for the cleaning. We give the officers an allowance to have the cleaning done.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up is police investigation, the investigation in youth bureaus. No change in the staffing here. This is the first, so one of the things you're going to see in a couple different places is what appears to be a reduction in holiday pay. So one of the things that we agreed to in the last contract negotiations was that rather than paying officers for the holidays, they had the option to take paid time off. So they basically convert it to not a comp day or a vacation day. So the chief and the captain built the budget assuming that 25% of the holidays would be converted to days off rather than pay.
We think that's conservative, but we have to start with a number somewhere.
So I said, maybe I should backtrack. Because the officers work rotating schedules, there's no guarantee that you get a holiday off. So what typically happens with police departments, fire departments, places where employees just, you might have to work the holiday. Instead of getting a holiday off like we would get, they get paid for the holiday, whether they work it or not. So they have 12 paid holidays. So it used to be that we would, as the holiday came, every officer would get an extra day's pay in their paycheck. So now what will happen is 12 twice a year, depending on whether or not they've taken the paid time off or they want the pay for it. They'll get a check for whatever they, like if there were 6 holidays in the first half of the year and they took 2 as days off, they'd get a check for 4 days. It's an interesting thing we're seeing with the newer officers, that the time seems to be more important to them than the pay that they want to have.
I think
And you'll see it
much
in
more
other areas.
important to this generation. Some of it's generational, certainly. And as we move forward into future fiscal years, I'm thinking that we'll probably see a 50-50 time versus pay. I think that's not out of the...
But it's not, and it's not something they can convert to terminal pay. It happens in the fiscal year. If they haven't taken the days off, we pay them.
So this is the first time we're going to see it in your proposed budget? Yep. Okay. So it's a contract,
Brand new
your best
contract position.
estimation as to how this new contract term will play out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Control, this is the biggest segment of the budget, and we showed you some of the detail behind all the,
You did?
yeah.
We appreciate that.
So you see where the full-time salary comes from. That's, every officer, their steps, their longevity, educational increments. The reduction in overtime.
Yeah, that was my question.
So we do not need to incur overtime to do the collect training anymore because they can do that online.
I'm sorry, what?
Collect, I don't know what it stands for, but it's the state dispatch
You know what?
system.
I couldn't.
The Connecticut Online Law Enforcement Telecommunications System. Thank you.
Wow.
Basically, that's the system that allows us to run criminal histories, license plates, registration checks.
So we used to have to bring officers in on days off to do training on the system. We don't have to do that anymore.
Recertified every couple of years or so.
Okay, so no overtime for system training.
Right. So there's a couple things where we don't believe we're going to need the overtime for the training anymore.
Okay.
We also expect to be at full strength, which will reduce the need for overtime. And as we just said, we're seeing a tendency towards more desire for the paid time, for the time off as opposed to the overtime. So an officer can choose comp time instead of the pay.
And then when they use that day, it has to be on a day when the shift is sufficient, where it's not going to cause
I was going to say, does it cause staffing issues? Yeah.
Now, there could be collateral issue down the road.
Right.
If they take the comp time, someone is ill, but it's not a one-for-one. So if someone takes comp time, there is a savings there, but we're not backfilling that position some of the time.
Oh, that's good. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's one of the things that is hard to understand about the overtime when we've tried, and I think the police department has done a really good job through the use of telestaff in tracking the causes of the overtime. But you don't always see what's the most proximal cause of the overtime. So, as Don said, maybe somebody can have a comp day this day because it's not going to cause you a problem, but then at the last minute somebody calls in sick. So which one created the overtime?
I've created a database since I've been the chief that we will have that answer as a ready reference.
That's great.
Can I ask a question on that? I know when we were talking last year, and I may be wrong on this, but based upon the amount of training that's required not only by state but our own department, it's a significant number. And when they're coming in on a period off, they're guaranteed 4 hours of overtime or whatever if they're doing it on an overtime basis. How much of our overtime is really based on training? Do you know that number? And the next thing is if they're coming in for training sessions and that, are they able to use that training essentially down the road for comp time?
They can choose, so if they come in for a 4-hour, training block for training,
Right.
they can choose to take comp time. They can elect to take comp instead of overtime.
Yeah, I think...
There's no contractual minimum for training.
No, I...
If we're doing 4 hours of training, it's 4 hours of training.
Yeah.
We're not getting a 4-hour contractual minimum for an hour of training.
That only
Oh, okay.
applies if the officers are being
Right.
hired for some other
For the private duty.
Private duty.
Okay.
We try to bundle
That's
our
it.
training, mandated training into sessions where we can do 1 or 2 or 3 topics in that period to get them
Okay.
all done, rather than bringing back the disparate topics.
Okay, that's good to
Bob
understand.
did training for quite some time. He's got a really good handle on
So like
bundling it together.
in the fall, because the state has added mandates, so in the fall now, we have 2 training days. For this prepared budget, there are 2 6-hour training days for various topics. Like halfway through last year, they added an unfunded mandate for human trafficking. Every town was required to provide 2 hours of human trafficking training too. So things like that pop up. And
Autism this year, there's 2-hour now mandated training new for autism training. For police officers.
cards, yeah.
Mandated.
That was actually quite good.
We have to get that, we have to fit that in.
I like that.
Yep.
But going back on that, I thought that someplace along the line, if we were looking at the 12 hours for a normal police officer, that almost 5% of their time is training based upon the total number of things. I mean, I thought it was a pretty significant amount of time that they had.
I'm not sure of that exact number, but 5% doesn't be out of the ordinary for the amount of training. Some of the training that, maybe is not mandated, but is certainly required in this day and age for professional police department.
every 3 years, there's every officer needs 60 hours of training to recertify. 28 is mandated classes such as like rape crisis, bigotry bias, juvenile matters, and then there's 32 hours of electives that they have to take, which can be in various topic areas. So some of the training we provide in-house is elective-based, and some of it's mostly mandates. But for the electives, we send officers to different classes, and so basically in training, that training officer's job is basically to run a mini college and make sure everybody gets their classes and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yep,
it.
can we, if you don't mind, we're going to move on.
Yep. So the other things I wanted to highlight on this page, let's see. We have a reduction in special equipment repair maintenance. Now, the note I made was we are no longer doing work on MDTs.
On what?
Mobile data terminals. When we go down to 15, the operating supplies, we are not buying any ERT and ballistic vests this year, which we've had to buy in the past.
So that's line?
That's the operating supplies. And then the personal protection gear, that's an increase. We have to buy new vests, replacement vests for 11 current officers, and we are assuming 4 new hires to be fitted out.
And previously, when Carl Kilduff was here, we had the discussion of whether we thought we could smooth out ballistic vest expenditures. You really can't. It's a 5-year life cycle for those vests. We have officers that retire, the vests are not reused.
They're fitted for each officer.
Individually fitted for each officer. So
That's on medical supplies?
No, that's under the personal protection
That's on
gear.
personal protection gear,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's the increase of
there
$6,500.
just has to be some variance there depending on staffing. Some
Bless you.
years, no one needs it, or virtually no one needs a new vest, and this year,
Right.
we have certain
Yeah.
officers that need it, so.
Marine gear, number 18?
Marine gear, the increase is we are gearing up 2 new scuba sets for new scuba team members.
So we're bringing on 2 new,
The team is down 3 members, so they want to try to bring on 2 members to replace.
And we need
They're
to
not
get them-
additional team members, they're being replaced.
We have.
But we need to get them the gear.
We've had an outflow of officers retire that were on the scuba team, and we need to get that back bolstered up to ensure that we have sufficient staff to respond to an emergency like that.
so this would be new training for existing, or your new?
This is new hires.
No, the
existing
for the
officers,
people.
yes.
These are existing, that's what I'm trying to get. The
Yeah,
existing
yes.
officers will be trained, and this is the equipment.
Yes.
And some officers might even come on with most of the requisite baseline dive training already, or have gotten it on their own.
Okay, all right.
They just need a little bit more. That's our goal in any way.
All good with patrol?
Radar replacement, Just,
Exactly what it sounds like. We don't buy them every year.
okay, so you didn't last year, now you need it back again? Okay.
We try to keep a regular rotation of radars, just to increase the technology, and if we, by getting them either every year or every other year, we're basically replacing one every 10 years.
And that is one unit.
So you're envisioning now every other year for a schedule on this?
I think we had one last year. I think we've had them every,
Not last year. Yeah. But the
In
3
all
years
years
before that,
prior.
we did, yeah.
So that's what, is it now the plan the thought every other year on this?
it's either, I
defer
defer
to
to
comment.
Okay.
the traffic guys, but I'm thinking, I'm envisioning that we would see a replacement unit every year.
Okay.
Okay, next up is records. No change in the staffing there, that's one officer and one, no, it's multiple civilian employees. The increase here is in software maintenance. That is for the in-car camera, digital storage, and licenses, as opposed to the body cameras.
So number 11, in-car camera.
Number 11.
In-car, did you repeat that?
We have in-car cameras,
In-car
and so that's
digital
for the digital storage and licenses.
And licenses.
Okay, then we have professional standards.
Hold on one second.
Sorry.
Where do we show the data storage costs for the body worn cameras?
There.
Comes in,
That should be in that account.
Yeah, it's also in
It's
that
all in
account.
that, it's in that account, same account. So
Same.
the software maintenance and support
Yeah. In records?
in records.
right.
Okay, great, thank you. The increase is just for the
For the in-car
in-car
cameras.
storage. Understood.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, next up is professional standards. So you see a couple things happening here. Training reduction is due to a down cycle for some types of training, things that they don't have to do every year. This just happened to be cyclical.
EMT, MRT, medical training, you don't have to do that this year.
Right. The bigger nut, number 10, the reduction, one of the changes in the current contract was we now have an annual cap on the amount of tuition that we will reimburse. And then also, it's the number of officers that are currently seeking degrees.
And civilian staff as well.
Pardon?
And civilian staff
And
as
civ-
well. In that number.
So that's a contract like the...
Right, because we used to have no cap.
Yeah.
So the cap is now equivalent to what the IRS limit is for the amount that we can reimburse you before it becomes a taxable event. That's $52.50 right now. We actually also put in a no multiple degrees. You know, we'll pay for one. We're not paying for you to get 3 master's degree and a doctorate anymore.
Is that through the other benefits to the other town employees? Same benefit?
No, it's not. I'm trying to think what the provisions are. I don't think the town hall union, no, they have it. I don't think Public Works has it.
Okay.
But it's different.
Thank you.
Okay. So, next up is communications. And the increase is...
Did we skip over school crossings?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I was thinking
Was that
so many,
Freudian?
it's just so few lines. I was thinking, that's revenue, just skip it. School crossing guards. What do you want to say?
So I guess what I want to say is, this is a good example of what I'd like to recommend, perhaps not in this budget cycle, but to work on for next, is a new model, a fee-for-service model, or start discussions with the chief and the captains about school crossing protection and the best model for school crossing protection. But I do feel strongly that this is a service that should be reimbursed to the town from the Board of Education.
Okay, now the dispatchers.
Given the conversations at the Board of Education and the busing range and everything like that, is this an area that we might want to consider a short-term increase to provide some incremental safety until that whole situation gets permanently ironed out?
So Don, maybe you can talk about how we decide where they're crossing guards.
In my 36 years here, we have never added a school post. We have contracted some school posts. There is no hard and fast rule that I'm aware of how we decide whether or not a school crossing guard would be amenable at a certain location. We are looking at Norotan West now. There's a request from the Board of Ed to see it, right? The question, of course, is if we staff it, will people come? Or are we going to have a school guard standing there crossing no one? Right? I'm not clairvoyant. That's one of the skills I haven't developed in my career. It is a discussion that we need to have, that what would be the benchmark for determining whether their school post would be there or not.
Is it number of cars, or not sure?
It would be number of crossings.
Number of students.
Number of student crossings,
The
right.
guards are there to cross
Yep.
children.
Right.
They're not there to cross adults.
Right,
They're
of
there,
course,
they'll certainly
of course.
help
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
who's crossing the street, but that's not what they're there for. So it's a discussion that we need to have. Is it one? Is it one kid? If there's one kid, there has to be a school guard. I would say no. And I'm not so sure that we're going to be able to measure if we staff it. They will come, and we'll see how many people are crossing it. So this is a discussion that we're having with the Board of Ed as well.
And understanding that it should necessarily be dynamic, because people move, kids age up, so it is a plan that should be reviewed from time to time to make sure that whoever provides the crossing guards, that they're in the right place.
And the captains and I had that very discussion very recently, that as warmer weather comes in the spring and into the fall, that we would gather that data for that exact reason, to have that conversation with the proper people to see where we're headed.
Perfect.
Well, and while we're doing the construction in Norotan West, as far as the road, it may be helpful to have someone there. I don't know if you're...
Yeah, there's going to be a whole series of crossings in that corridor from Hecker to West that, I think we need to see the number of students that walk that path. I'm, as I said to the chief earlier today, I'm more concerned about kids crossing over Ledge Road than even maybe at Leroy and West. They're all problematic, but crossing over the I-95 on and off ramps is very difficult.
It's difficult, yeah.
Okay. Communications.
Communications. The increase you see there is a result of the proposal to staff the midnight shift with civilians. This would be adding 3 dispatchers to cover that shift with 2 dispatchers 7 days a week. What you see here is the salary and the anticipated overtime. I think it's important that we do it. I think we train our police officers to be police officers. We spend a lot of money training them. They should be doing the work that they were trained to do. And we should have people who are especially trained in dispatch, doing the dispatch to provide the best service to the taxpayers. The question will be, once we have it fully staffed, what's the next step after that? What do we get with having, moved an officer out of dispatch in that midnight hours? And how do we redeploy the officer? Do we redeploy the budget funds?
So this is a conversation clearly we've had through 3 different police department administrations and multiple Selectmen members. this whole thing really started percolating with Chief Anderson #1 in 1989, when the first document was crafted saying that our dispatch model was just not workable with one person in dispatch. And in, I think, 2014, when Chief Lovello and Captain Conway was here, the first proposal was set forth to civilianize the dispatch center. In the meantime, since then, we have rolled it out in sections which have identified collateral issues that we didn't see contractually with different unions doing the same job, and how we staff it, and who we can bring back, and who we can order to do different work. I still think the model for the civilian dispatch program was sound then. I think it's sound now. I think the 5 dispatchers that we have, and the 6th spot, we're hiring a new person that comes highly trained and highly regarded. They're doing a fine job. They're doing exactly what we're looking for them to do. It does free up an officer to not have to work dispatch on days and evenings. And moving forward, I think if we're going to a civilianized dispatch program, we have to get that in place and running, and effectively work out the contractual obligations for that union, that they're in the town hall union. And then we have the discussion on redeployment of sworn personnel and potential offsets between civilian hires and officers. Clearly, that has always been part and parcel of the discussion, that if we're going to get civilian dispatchers, 9 employees doing that position, that there has to be some offset. And there's where the discussion will happen. And I think we can have that discussion, and I think the town would be best served with civilian dispatchers and officers doing officers' work. I don't envision laying off officers, clearly, but through attrition and moving forward, identifying better ways to staff the police department. To my benefit as the chief, and to the townspeople's benefit, to get the best service for the officers that you're paying their salary.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a number of things to consider. Is there some special police work that we haven't been doing that we ought to be doing? Are there changes that we could make in management that would help the department run more efficiently? Are we right staffed now in terms of your sergeants, your lieutenants, your captains? Evaluate that. I know you have a desire for an IT person for the police department. Is that, if we were to free up through attrition, use those budget funds instead of to replace an officer to hire the IT person, would that make for a more efficient operations at the police department? I think there's an awful lot that we can do to get the best police department we can with the budget funds we have when we get this in place.
So I'd like to say too that I think I've been around for lots of years of this discussion, and we have talked about a number of things being possible by the utilization of a civilian dispatch model. One of them was putting an SRO in the middle school, which we've been able to complete this year, which is great. The other, we've been talking about what seemed to be a shortage of time for doing narcotics investigations. I believe that's still a need in the department, something that's very important to our community. So, I'm supportive of the dispatch model. I only see the burdens of our department growing over time. You'll never be able to cut back on officers. We're about to legalize recreational marijuana, so who knows what that's going to do to your world.
Yeah. In the 36 years that I've been here, the amount of reporting that it has to do, or our records division has to do, has grown exponentially, probably tenfold from 1983. We have this discussion all the time that I can't stop you anymore for your taillight being out and just say, ma'am, your taillight is out, and let you go. There's all the data that has to be captured and reported to the state of Connecticut.
Right.
There's 12 questions that we have to answer every time we stop you, in every single stop in the computer, or the stop is not compliant. Those kind of things that all have to be reported. The amount of data that we have to process is just it really is, sometimes I shake my head on the amount of data that we have to process.
Sure.
You know, we do have much more commercial establishments. We're getting
Mhm.
300 more residential
Yep.
units. Our officers, if you see them out there, they're not reading the paper and having coffee. I don't have time for coffee, clearly. You know, the things that we're tasked to do have grown exponentially. And accreditation, for one, state accreditation to ensure that we're compliant with best practices, that has to be done every 3 years. Many departments, that is a full-time employee. That's all they do. We do it with our existing administrative lieutenant, plus his other tasks that he does. So there are things that we have to do, and there's certainly things that we can do, and I think there's services that the town would like us to do that we could do by freeing up some officers to do that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, I'm sorry, Krista, one second. I just want to make sure that we have some kind of, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of a redeployment plan. You know, once we finish up this civilian dispatch, have it be a little bit more than we'll be able to do that if we hire 3 more dispatchers. You know, I really want to give the community some confidence of the things that can happen in the department when and if we approve it.
One of those would be our traffic unit, staffed with 2 officers. It hasn't been now staffed with 2 officers for, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's one officer is spread very thin on the things he does, and it's not just giving out tickets. It's meeting with, residents. It's deploying our bollards that you see in roads around different parts. It's attending, traffic meetings. Clearly, we have a need, more than ample need, that we could staff 2 traffic officers and still keep them busy.
Okay.
Addressing the concerns of every neighborhood in the town. If you name the street, we have a pending request from neighbors for something in that neighborhood.
So maybe you should give the chief a target date if the dispatchers are approved, by what date you would like to see the redeployment plan.
Yeah.
If we had a target date, I'd bring it back to the police commission and we have that discussion.
Okay. Well, I think what I'd like to say, it would make some sense, if at all possible, to have a redeployment plan before this budget gets discussed at the Board of Finance level. And I don't know if that's reasonable.
Some of the things on deployment are contractual.
Yeah, okay.
That we have to have something in place before we can have contract negotiations next time with the rank and file members of what possibly could happen. That's a big part of the puzzle.
Which is fine, and that could be something that you just note in the plan, that there's prerequisites to...
Contractually, we have a contract mandated minimum where we have to have sufficient staffing.
Yep.
That's something that needs to be discussed in contract negotiations, and if this was in place, that is a part of that matrix where we can have that discussion cogently and be able to say, listen, this is why we think this is a better idea now that we have these dispatchers.
Okay. All right.
What about the concept that the cement can be dropped?
Yep.
That could come
CMED for the fire dispatch.
Right.
Yes. We need to get them trained. We need to get the dispatchers trained and in place. And then I believe, absolutely, we can bring back the fire dispatch.
And what's our cost roughly on that?
It's about $58,000.
So that's kind of a reasonable offset.
Yes.
I have said time and time again that I am 100% confident with our civilian dispatch program that we can bring back that fire dispatch to any level, reasonable level that the fire department asks for, and then
Yeah, they'll need some training, but, in the protocols of the fire departments, but they'll be absolutely capable.
But can I just clarify what we're asking for 3 people?
Yes.
To have 2 people on a shift, from midnight shift, to replace 1
So
officer.
Right now, we staff it with 1 officer, but the best practice is to have two dispatchers on every shift.
virtually no one runs a single civilian dispatcher.
Right.
Again, this is something that could be in the conversation, but I do think we should staff for 2 dispatchers, potentially not hire back on the midnight shift and all occurrences on every night if someone was sick or someone was on vacation.
Okay, so you would plan for 2, but would make do with 1 if situations arise.
Right. I mean, I think that is a very reasonable discussion to have.
It'd be a reduction in overtime, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah. Just don't make it a mandatory.
Not make it a mandatory.
Order back.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's why I was like, there's one gentleman, one officer doing it now. Now we're looking for 2 civilians, just trying to understand why the need for the 2, if one individual's done it now.
Well, it's just a best practice. On a shift, if it gets busy in there, where you have a domestic violence call and then you have a bad car accident on 95, that place really heats up.
Okay.
And to have one officer listening for, and if you're going to bring back fire in EMS, to have one officer have all that's going on and listen to fire, police, and EMS all at the same time. I did that job as a patrolman and a sergeant, and it gets very difficult.
Okay, just want to clarify what we're,
I can
Guys
tell
would
you,
have rather gone down in
Especially that time.
sewer pump station and sit at the desk
Yeah.
sometimes, you know? They would have rather done that.
I can tell you too that I have been in the dispatch on a number of occasions when we've had town-wide emergencies. And it's not possible to serve the town well with one dispatcher.
okay, fair enough. No, just fine.
So we have 2 phases of this dispatch model deployed already. Aside from the SRO, what have the freed up officers been deployed doing?
Well, we have been at less than full strength for this entire time. We've been down either 2 or 3 officers through resignations and retirements. So we have deployed since we got the dispatch, the 311 dispatch. The SRO now is at Middlesex School. That's still this school year. The other spots, we still have to staff our regular patrol staffing. We're leaving, the midnight tour is staffed 1 short by design right now because we're down an officer. And the traffic unit does not get their replacement officer.
Right, so David, the intent was that we would have a dedicated narcotics officer.
Yep.
But we haven't been able to fill that because we haven't been at full strength. So right now, the trade-off has been less overtime.
Right, so the language on page 78 that refers to the number of sworn officers, that's the actual number of officers we have now?
Full sworn is 51, it's supposed to be 51.
It's supposed to be 51, is that the number of?
51 is what we are budgeted for.
Is what we are budgeted for.
Authorized.
But what I'm hearing you say to me is, we're at 48 or
Yes.
48.
Yes.
We have not been at 51 maybe.
All right, yeah,
Maybe for a minute or 2.
We've had, for like a month,
All right,
maybe.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
what are we
sure I
at?
understood.
We're 49 right now.
Where we were.
49?
You're-
Not 48.
You're a few short of what the sworn approved amount is, and because of that, any formal data on redeployment isn't yet really developed because you're still running as hard as you can just to cover the bases.
And I think that we have to have this in place before we can have a real substantive discussion on how we're going to move forward.
So if we were to approve this, you get the money July 1, how, do we have a queue of people as we've been hiring up for the second shift of dispatchers? Do we have applications in place?
We just hired provisionally, we're hiring 1 to replace Suzanne Dennis, who resigned to move on to another dispatch position. We do have other people in the queue we just interviewed that are viable candidates.
Okay, all right. So it wouldn't take us very long to staff this up?
Well, and I would say we would, if it's approved, we would start the process before the budget so that we'd be able to move quickly once the budget, once July 1st came.
Can I ask a question about overtime?
Yeah.
How is it that a civilian dispatcher would have overtime? Could you help me?
If we,
Just a scenario.
Our staffing model is to have 2 on a shift.
Correct.
So if one calls in sick,
They
have to be replaced.
They get the right of first refusal.
They get the right,
Okay,
So
so
in the
you
existing
call somebody
shifts,
else in to come in, which is their overtime?
Personal
Yes.
day,
Okay,
jury duty.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. But the model we're thinking is for the evening shift not to do that. You're thinking you're,
I would say the evening shift, it would be the midnight shift is the one that we haven't
Correct.
staffed yet. So that's the one we're talking about. We would want to have discretion Okay, fair enough. So, they may decide that the chief may say, well, Friday night,
Yeah, no.
we gotta have
two is best
but
practice.
Sunday,
two.
maybe not.
Okay. But can I just trying to get back to then the proposed overtime, why we're going to 65 if we're adding
Because right
3
now, any
people?
overtime on that midnight shift would be staffed by a police officer. So this is an assumption of what we would, based on the number of vacation days that these people would have and shifts we would have to fill. It is an estimate. It's, I can't say that it's informed by history because we don't have a lot of history.
I'm sorry, so is this overtime assuming it's an officer or it's assuming it's a
assuming
civilian?
It's assuming it's a civilian.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused by that too, I have to admit. You would assume, you would think that overtime would be
Reduced.
a reduction.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing on, 700 more additional shifts by those by the dispatchers, 3 dispatchers working.
Well, I would
2,
raise it by half of it. If we've got 6 individuals creating 30,000, am I looking at this wrong? 6 individuals are creating 30,000. We had 3 more, wouldn't we add another 15,000? I mean, am I
Your
not-
logic makes sense to me, yes. Yes.
That's how I'm thinking of it,
We'll
but
take a second look at that number.
as opposed to doubling it.
Yeah, we'll take a second look at that number and get back to you.
Yeah, I'm just doing
Because right now,
proportionally.
you fill the midnight shift with one person who would come in for overtime, right? So that's not going to change. One officer.
Well, staffed,
Right now, it's staffed with somebody on straight time.
right. So it's set, for our midnight shift, there's 6 officers at our minimum. 1 officer is on the desk,
yep.
and then 5 are on the road.
I'm not so sure when this number looking at here, when we did the budget for the fiscal year that we were in, whether or not that the evening dispatchers were factored into that overtime equation.
The 1920?
Right.
I don't know. But, we'll go back and look at the logic behind it and look at our experience, what we're seeing with the 2 shifts, how much overtime we should expect. So we'll take a second look at that number.
Right, either 30 you need to revise.
Yeah.
Or the 65, I think.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, the other question I had, just when I was looking at this document we got yesterday, which was the position request summary as far as the base salary. On the flip side, that's just contractual, that's what
Yes,
we have
the
police.
This is the town hall union contract, and that's the amount in the current salary schedule in that contract.
It is as a base. I just happened to notice, I was trying to understand a little bit more about the role. Fairfield is now advertising at $42,900 to $60,000 base salary for a civilian dispatcher.
Yeah.
But this is our town hall union contract base
Yes.
rate?
Yes.
The current contract, step 1, as of July 1st this past year, is $60,852. Goes up to a maximum by the end of the contract, or the end of 2020, at $77,008. But that's at step 8. Because we're such a new program, there is no one at step 8.
Correct.
So we're only, the most senior dispatcher, I think, will be stepping to step 3, or possibly 4. Track of time when we had a problem.
But if I'm understanding that right, it's a pretty good job to come here as an entry-level dispatcher.
Yeah, literally.
If we start at 40, we're not going to be able to hire anybody.
Right.
Well, Fairfield is looking at $42,900 to $60,000, and we're coming in at $62,000.
The problem we're having.
So come here to Darien.
Right, but this last time, we had 1 job opening, and for as good as we pay, we had 6 qualified applicants.
Okay, yeah, maybe Fairfield's not getting anybody.
Well, another problem is people don't want to drive down here, we're finding.
Why do they have to drive down here?
Most people aren't going to live, you're not going to get a civilian dispatcher that lives in Darien. Right?
No. Well, can they come from Portchester?
I drive.
Okay, that's what I mean, they can come up here too.
Yes.
Right, but typically we're seeing people that, like, there's one kid we're hiring, he's from Massachusetts.
Oh, Lord.
So a lot of our officers now live in Trumbull, Monroe, Stratford, Milford, right? So like Greenwich PD, they're having a hard time in hiring because people don't want to come down this section of Connecticut in this pocket because of the traffic. So Fairfield might have an easier time because people live up that way.
Okay, but there's no constraints. We certainly have that on the teaching side because the certification is different, you know, you have to.
Oh, yeah, there's no constraints in that way. It's
Okay.
strictly a lifestyle, you know,
Perfect, got
people
it.
not wanting to sit in the traffic.
Got it, thank you.
And it is a great job. I'm surprised we don't get more
I know.
applicants because we blanket.
Well, we
regional
get
areas.
applicants that are not necessarily qualified.
We're not, we have.
Even on the police side, we're seeing less applicants because, and traffic is one of the reasons. People don't want to come to this pocket of Connecticut from the north side. The people that live in, I'm sorry?
Advertising Westchester.
We
Oh, we won't get.
They don't want to come to New York, Connecticut?
They get a lot better benefits and salary and.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it'd be a retirement job for them.
Got it.
All right, are we done with communications? Any other dispatcher questions? I'm sure we'll discuss it as we deliberate. All right, fleet.
Fleet.
Not much here.
There is nothing remarkable in this one. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Fleet stayed kind of the status quo.
Yeah. You know, it's one employee, and he does the basic maintenance on our vehicles, and he actually also does some of the station maintenance, but yeah, nothing outstanding there. Police station operations, we have 1.5 civilian employees there, and the thing I would note is the facility repair and maintenance budget assumes that certain repairs will happen between now and July 1st. And I believe, is the increase because of the UPS batteries?
We on line 10 here, I'm sorry.
We're on
just
line
to
10,
clarify.
sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for not giving you the numbers. Yeah.
Okay, No, just sorry.
Yeah, we have 2 UPS systems in our building. It's uninterruptible power supply, keeps our building up and operational while we go from street power to our generator. The equipment that we have in there cannot go down. If it goes down, it's going to take an extended period of time to reboot. We're out of business. And those batteries have to be replaced every 4 to 5 years.
So that's $4,000.
The quote for the vendor to do it was more than double that, and when Dave Sabidi came on board, he found out that we could do that in-house by buying the batteries ourselves, and he swaps them out safely. So
Resourceful.
We're saving 50% or more on that.
Okay.
Let's go down the maintenance contract.
Maintenance contract.
This sort of like all over, like 31, 40, 36, 54, 55. I think they'll be more stable. I mean, it's not that it's huge, but.
You know, I'd have to go back and look and see what that one was about.
Move on.
I'll take a look at that and get back to you tomorrow. So then we have animal control. Nothing really significant in this budget. It's our one animal control officer. And that is it for the regular PD. If you go to the capital.
In the back or the middle?
In the middle.
Yeah.
Let's go to the middle. And it's page 212. So the first item is vehicle replacement. That is our regular replacement of patrol vehicles. What we try and do is, wherever possible, we take them, if they're still in decent condition, we take them and pass them down to other departments. So it does not include trade-in value. Looking to see. So it's 3 marked patrol vehicles and 1 administrator vehicle. So that's 4 vehicles represented there.
So
So I think we talked, in my tenure at F&B, I think we talked about this once before, but I don't remember the answer, so I'm going to have to ask again. The vehicles have the warranty for the first 3 years, and we maintain them properly during that 3-year period.
Yes.
What are the risks of extending the vehicle replacement cycle to 4 years? Or give me an idea, like, how, I know you guys are in those things all the time, 24/7, right? So what's the sort of mileage look like when, at the end of the 3-year period? Because I can't really wrap my head
I
around
think we gave a document that I could probably resurrect to the Board of Selectmen at some point on it. Mileage, it turns out to be usually in the 80 to 90,000, but the engine hours equate to over 300 and 350,000 miles.
Yep.
Because they're running nonstop. And the reality of it on patrol cars, marked patrol cars, is that where the average person opens the car door and sits their fanny in the seat a couple times a day, patrol cars are getting open, the doors are getting open and shut hundreds of times a day. We have different sized body types in those seats. They're not driven like your typical car going down to Trader Joe's or going to church on Sunday.
Depends if you're late.
They are.
So we know where to post the messages now. Follow her.
Our patrol cars, at the end of the 3-year cycle, they are well worn and they are worthy of replacement. And simply for our collateral, right, we are the most representative arm of the town government. And at the end of 3 years, even though we try to keep the outside looking as nice as we can, they are chipped and touched up. And we have found, in my 36 years, we went from a 1-year replacement cycle when I started. Every car was replaced every year. To a 2-year replacement cycle. Remember, cars were not what they cost now.
Not
We went to a
80,000.
2-year cycle. Captain Com, when he was here, developed this 3-year cycle, which has worked very well for us for the last 15 years.
Well, Fred was great and all, but that wasn't done voluntarily. That was done at the behest of the Board of Finance. I would say, Dave, the other thing that happens is your maintenance costs would increase in that 4th year.
Right.
And the value of the vehicle to the town, our ability to then take it down and pass it along to a department that needs it to, to go around town and do inspections and stuff like that, we may lose that ability. So we could incur a higher cost on the vehicle replacement elsewhere in the budget.
And so far, we've managed to repurpose all of the vehicles at the end of it.
No, some of them are not worth, maybe some of them are not worth repurposing.
50 as a weight. No one wanted the old animal control van. We tried to put that on. Well, there was no takers, so that one got traded in. They actually gave us a lot more for it than I thought they would.
So the number that's in here is for new, assuming we repurpose the vehicles, but occasionally.
That there's no trade-in value.
But
so-
occasionally we might trade in, and that will just be a subsequent adjustment later.
Yeah, but I'd say, I think the plan is coming out of this year is that 2 of the vehicles are good enough that we will take them and use them in other departments.
Do we also put the admin vehicle on the 3-year?
No.
No.
Okay,
Admin
good.
vehicles,
They last long.
chief captains, detective
Right.
bureau commander, detective bureau, not take-home cars. Those are on at least 8 or 10 years.
Perfect. Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
just
what it-
wanted to
that's what it
clarify.
says.
Thank you.
8 to 10, and
Got
that's certainly doable.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Because those cars are not being driven.
Correct.
To calls and going over curbs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So if we ever move to the idea of having a couple of fleet cars that we talked about
Yeah.
last night, we might be able to source them from this.
Or at least see why not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we got a lot.
Unless we want to move to an EV model
we do.
of fleet cars for town hall. Someday.
I would be for that.
Okay. Okay, next up is radio replacement. That is exactly what it sounds like. And let's see.
So is it possible that we're not going to be replacing radios in
Yeah.
versus 5 more years after this year?
That's what they said.
And Chip Patone does our radios, he's kind of the radio guru. We've had a radio replacement cycle We do have some folks with radios that are, I think when mine replaced, I think mine was 2005, when I finally got replaced. By going to these radios now, our older radios that some people still have are not supported. You can't get them worked on. If we bite the bullet here and outfit our officers with the current standard radio, we'd be looking out 5 or 6 years before we have to get any radios. It means it'd be 10 years out on a 3-year replacement cycle. Replacing third.
Okay.
And the technology in 10 years, probably we're going to see something completely different. Your radio might be in your phone, it might be in your pen, it might be in, who knows?
Well, to that point, so this is the right investment to last us at least 6 years
Yes.
or 5 years. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We have some small capital where we combine a couple things, AED and MDT replacement, minor items. Replacement of the motors for the boat.
Right.
$33,000. They are at that, they're 5.5 years old, they're out of warranty, they have 1,500 hours on them. It is time to replace them.
Is this amount net of the trade-in value?
I don't know that there's a trade-in value.
There is a trade-in value for the motors.
There is?
Bob
Okay.
got the quote for them. I think that would be the net.
Then it would be the net, yeah. If there's a trade-in value, this would be the net.
Is there, what kind of motors are on the boat, and is there anything special about the boat, motors for your boat versus a traditional retail motor?
The police have one.
Yeah, Marine Division motors, there's nothing in those motors that is
Straight up out.
Yeah, and right now, I think they're having moves, and I think they're 300, twin 300s.
Twin 300.
No 350s?
All right.
250 or 300.
For
I think this price may not be net of the trade-in value, because I actually priced up twin 250s today, and was able to find the 250 model at $16,500 per engine in a 7-year warranty.
So
Pretty close to 33.
Right.
So, yeah, so that would not be net of the trade-in.
Can you guys look at the quotes and see if you had gotten a trade-in value on that?
And I know they did say that if we stayed with the current motor, that from control on back could stay. If we went to a different vendor, control all the way, everything would have to.
So Kate, you want to know if the
No,
trade-in's
yeah,
included?
no.
Right, it's just a $33,000 assume a trade-in.
Completely for having you guys.
Can you buy boat motors off of state bid? Do we get a better price on motors through?
If there is a
any of
state
our
bid,
channels?
one-
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But we would look at that when we went to,
Okay.
when we went to buy them.
Was there a consortium, right, people?
No, the
buying them?
state bids things out, and we have the right under our
Yeah, make
purchasing
sure that,
rules and under state rules,
can't-
that we can get the same price as state did. So they bid out
I
boat
would think
motors.
our vendor that,
So that's how we, you know, like,
forever,
there's other equipment that we
they
buy,
would do it for
we
us
use the
by
state
only
bid price.
bid, but they would certainly rather.
So we have historically sourced them from the bait shop?
Right.
So you might be getting a different than market price potentially already. Just be good to check that
Yeah,
out.
they've been very good to us, since my days in the Marine Division.
Okay.
We need to replace 2 ERT rifles, and we are adding 2 patrol rifles. That's a cost of $9,300.
What's ERT?
ERT, Emergency
the-
Response Team.
It's the Regional Emergency Response Team.
We don't really like to have discussions on weaponry too much. You know, it's not a topic that anybody really wants to talk about. It's kind of like a whole life insurance policy. You hope you don't have to use it at any point.
No, just so when I see acronyms, I like to know what they stand for. Just put patrol rifles, it's
Patrol
fine too.
rifles, we need to have replacement patrol rifles. Some of them are over 10 years old, and we're going to try to get them on a replacement cycle as well. ERT rifles are a little bit more special. They were at least that same vintage. And
They get fired a lot more than the patrol rifles do, so they have a higher round count, which is, there's more wear and tear. a car after a while, you're going to lose your trade-in value.
So that's,
Yes.
We are proposing to replace the e-citation, or is this a new? I can't recall.
That's an addition.
An additional e-citation system at a cost of $53,000.
This is going to have to be done sooner or later. It's going to be a statewide mandate. Right now, Darien is one of the few towns that does not use e-citation, so we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on this.
And they do contact me on a regular basis when
Say, what are you doing?
we are going to be compliant. So, what this e-citation does, just if anyone's watching and doesn't know, it's just a streamlining operation for issuing citations. Where if you have the system, the officer can take your driver's license, put it in the card reader, and it automatically, unfortunately for you, populates the ticket without the officer writing anything. Right, streamline operation, but in the back end as well. Right now, the paper ticket gets processed by our clerk in the records division, who then mails them physically to the state of Connecticut. That whole step will be gone. All data on going to the Centralized Infraction Bureau, who processes traffic tickets for the state of Connecticut. It's all done in one operation. There's no more manual entry of data. She takes a ticket and manually enters the data into our system.
Will we be able to have a reduction in staff as a
I
result?
was going to say, what's the offset? Do we see an offset from this then?
Potentially, but the girl who does this for us, she's also our records and our evidence clerk. Is it possible that our part-timer could be reduced because of streamline operations? Yes, it's certainly something that's possible going forward in the future. Yeah.
Next is to upgrade the system, the fire protection system in the radio equipment room, computer server room.
Sort of
Back with me, but I'm going to let Bob give you the...
So right now, if in our computer room and our server room, it's the sprinkler system we have in there is to code, but in worst case scenario, if there's a fire and those sprinklers are ignited, millions and millions of dollars of equipment is going to be gone.
Real wet.
So the best practice is to have this clean agent system which can extinguish the fire, but keep our infrastructure intact, all the computer equipment, and save the town millions and millions of dollars in replacement costs.
Some of this equipment we maintain on behalf of the state. It's not our equipment, but it is, I think it's over $4 million. But the collateral detriment here is if we do get a fire suppression activation in there either by accident or malfunction, the police department is out of business. And I go back to pen and paper, and that's not where we want to be at this point. We do have the ability, of course, to bug out and do our dispatching at a remote location, but still, you're going to have to get this back up and running on our building, and it's going to be a long period of time to get replacement equipment back up and running.
This is just an insurance policy.
And we've had, some folks come into our server rooms and they look at it and go, oh boy. Yes, it's going to protect you from a fire, but it's not going to protect you from other calamity that might happen in there. So again, it's a big expense. It's something I think that if we do once, I don't think it's something that wears out. It may need to be expected, but I don't think it's going to wear out.
Is there a need to have that anywhere else in town hall? I mean, as you described it, but I don't know something for next year.
That's a good question.
Something for, yeah.
Didn't we have an issue with the downstairs?
That was it wasn't the fire system, it was a malfunction in the air conditioning system. And we won't get into that.
Yeah.
The last item was the laser shot judgment training simulator, which I did not fund. Felt that basically I had funded everything else that they proposed, and that this was the one that could wait if it needed to, or seek grant opportunities.
Our current, the prison system is the judgmental shoot, don't shoot system. It was state of the art when we put it in. The building was done in 2011. Sometimes software companies and that company no longer exists. There's no additional scenarios that you can get for the system. The company came in and demonstrated this laser shot. I've seen it, Bob and I've seen it at conventions. It is really almost too realistic. That's how realistic this is. In this day and age, where every single incident is absolutely scrutinized to the nth degree, I think we owe it to our officers to give them the best possible realistic scenario training. I do agree with the town administrator, though. We have a system in place that works, that we can defer this, and we'd be coming back again for this request, but I think it's one that, in our scheme of things that we do, I agree that we can wait on it now.
So I probably have asked two of your predecessors this question. Are you able to allow other departments on a fee basis to come and utilize your training systems as a regional service?
For kind of, is it possible? Yes, we do let other departments use our range right now in rare circumstances that theirs down, they have to qualify.
Right.
So,
but not everybody has a range, right? And not
Well,
everybody
right now-
has the systems that we have.
Right now, primarily New Canaan, and they don't do it frequently. Like if one or two officers misses a qualification, they'll ask if, one or two officers can come down.
Yep.
Like Stanford with their new building, they have a range. Norfolk with their new building, they have a range. Westport has an indoor range. Greenwich. So they're regionally, it's been talked about in Fairfield County trainers to get a regional facility for an indoor range. So I don't see a need where we're going to have to bring the other departments in.
it's certainly possible. You have an element there of liability affixing to any training that we're doing for other departments. If we were doing the training on our system and our trainers were doing it, we get drawn into potential issues if there's an incident in their town.
For me, it's about range maintenance. The backstop, we have a service that comes in that has to clean the lead at the end of the range. And then the carrier systems, they get beat up a lot if an officer misses and the carriers get hit. So if you bring in other departments, it just creates more wear and tear on the range and more maintenance.
Okay.
Does New Canaan have a range?
Not their own indoor range, no.
We try not to miss.
Yeah, but how badly are they missing that they're hitting the carrier thing?
That's just a little scary.
Yeah.
That's why.
But it can happen.
Does New Canaan have this judgment training simulator?
That's why they bring an outside vendor.
Yeah.
In a trailer type system.
And it is true that, over the last
No, I like the idea of-
career, a lot more people have come in and they're very competent police officers, but they have never touched a firearm. The first time that they ever touched a firearm is when we start training them. Unfortunately, some of those people are a lot better to train because they have no bad habits to break.
And a lot of the carrier hits, it's from the angles. If you're drawing from the hip and you're shooting upward, the round's going to go up. So they're hitting the target. It's just the angles that it's not a fully dynamic range, but officers are moving and shooting at different, kneeling, standing, prone, or lying down. So the angle of bullets are different. So certain things are getting hit. It's not that officers are constantly missing. I'm trying to make that clear.
It's nice to know that.
The scores are good.
Well, hopefully the Chiefs Association can sort of plead the case of the need for every department to have their own training facilities, because I hear such a different conversation around the state tables that
I think
no one in Hartford believes that that's necessary.
I think you're going to see eventually in the future, and it's being talked about with Fairfield County trainers, is a Fairfield County Police Academy, a Fairfield County indoor range. I think in the future,
Got it.
10, 20 years out, that's probably going to be a reality.
But that'll just be an additional cost to us. We'll have to contribute to the construction and maintenance and operation of that facility.
Nothing ever goes down in price.
Yeah.
Our price for training a recruit now at the police academy has gone up July 1st.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the idea that if someone asks you, that you let folks know.
We try to help it. We try to accommodate, any department that would call and ask.
Okay.
We don't get a lot of requests, to be honest.
Okay.
But that's because a lot of the area departments do have new facilities, so.
Yep. All right.
Okay, that's it.
Yes, Dan?
Just one quick question. Back on the fire protection system, that data storage room, is there any remote backup? So the data that's stored there, is it remotely stored anywhere else, or is it just stored there?
Yeah. The data is also resides on, a lot of it resides on town servers, but a lot of equipment in there is like radio equipment. Okay. E911, all that is housed in there. Our in-house CCTV is stored in there, so it's not just data, it's all the operational systems that run out of there.
So those systems wouldn't be backed up because that wouldn't make sense, but the data that's stored there is backed up elsewhere?
Right.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. Any questions for PD? All right. Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, and with your indulgence, I'd like to just ask for a couple minutes to stand up and stretch.
Stretch myself.
I think we were doing
Yeah, take a couple, seriously. Take more.
It's 15,000.
I'm going for chocolate on it.
That's what I'm thinking too. I got a double.
Yeah.
It only counts as one.
You know what, and doesn't if you're standing, so you're like burning the calories. There you go. Thanks, guys, thank you.
Okay, we are going to do a little schedule change. We'll go over Parks and Rec on Monday night. Hopefully Pam will join us then. So tonight, we're just going to do benefits and risk management, and then we'll call it a night. That's tab 12.
Okay. Page 189. I think we gave you the highlights the other night. Right. You can't. Sorry.
The biggest jump here is the change in the pension fund contributions.
The largest, the impact here is the change in the pension plan.
Which is line 9, yeah.
The new mortality table and reducing the investment earnings assumption.
The pension fund contribution versus the police pension contributions, there's a disparity about which one went up the most. Is there a reason for that?
Two different mortality tables. With the new public sector mortality tables, they have 3 types. One for teachers, one for public safety, one for everybody else.
Right.
So you're looking at 2 different kinds of tables. It's not just that we. So theirs is different.
They made their adjustment.
Their adjustment was
pretty significant.
Yeah.
Which means police are surviving longer. Okay.
Obviously, the medical insurance, as I told you the other night, our carrier has indicated that our worst case scenario will be no increase in the premium. We're hoping it'd be nice to have it a little better than that, but also, as we pointed out, the union contracts require that the employees pay a percentage of the premium. The Public Works contract calls for their increase to happen on June 30th, the last day of their contract. And the other 2 will have their increases on July 1st. But we did build into each contract. They each have an increase on the last day of their contract. We did that because, what typically happens is, like the Public Works contract expires on June 30th. We probably won't have the new one in place on July 1st. The employees will end up likely getting retroactive pay on, their increase back to July 1st. But we won't get a retroactive contribution back to July 1st. So this ensures that at least for the next year, the first year of their contract, they have an increased share in the premium.
So your proposed budget shows a reduction from this year.
Yes.
Is that
So that's because
based on
that's because of the employee share going up.
I see.
And it is, at the same time, we're also looking at every employee and what coverage they have. So it's always a reset from the prior year.
Yeah, okay.
We're projecting the dental rates to go up slightly. We have budgeted some funds for a wellness program. We include in that account the employee assistance program. We've switched providers for that. Both, the police is in there as well? Right, so we've switched providers for the police and the town. We are at a lower cost with the new provider.
Okay.
Okay.
And that basically is what again, wellness program?
Well, wellness, there's part of this account is part wellness.
Yeah.
So trying to incent employees to, right. But we also have an employee assistance provider, which is something we're mandated to do as employers, and we've changed our provider.
The accrual leave redemption?
Yeah. I was
Accrued
gonna ask
leave
about that.
redemption, so
It's all over the,
it is all over the place. We have budgeted about $75,000 the last few years, assuming that there will be at least one person who goes out, usually more than that. We have found it to be insufficient. Sometimes if you get a long-term police officer who retires, the payouts can be significant. So we're proposing to increase it slightly. You know, depending on who might go in the $100,000 may not be enough. It's an estimate. We have no knowledge of anybody in particular, but we have, you know.
do you know, where are you on that number now? Is that something?
We have exceeded that. And
The 75 already to date,
Yeah.
year to date now?
We exceeded that with one person.
Oh,
When a police chief retires, it's a very
okay,
large
yeah,
payout.
yeah, yeah. Okay, well, so we don't expect that.
No. He promised.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
And one thing that we do on this account, in the years that you see a very high amount, some of it, if somebody is a high-level employee with a large payout and they retire, there's usually some salary savings from time of, there's vacancy for a time, and if somebody's hired at a lower salary. So we will transfer funds out of that salary account into the accrued leave to cover some of their payout if we go over budget here.
Yeah.
Because the payouts associated with that person, we budgeted dollars for them in salary, we need it in accrued payout, so we can move it if it's available.
And so, like you said, last year we had proposed a budget that was higher. We had proposed buying down all the non-reps to a 5-week limit.
Right, we started talking about that before,
Right.
right?
The Board of Selectmen did not want to tax for that. So Jen and I have talked about, in the current year, we believe we will have a positive balance in the salary contingency line. So we've talked about perhaps bringing forth a proposal to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to fund a transfer to implement that, implement a new policy reducing the amount you can carry over to 5 weeks and buy people down to that level at this time. It's, I think it's something we really should do because the number just grows. And to, Kip's question earlier, you're paying them out at the amount they're making when they leave, not the amount they made when they earned it.
It doesn't.
And
that affects their pension, doesn't it?
it does not affect their pension.
Oh, it does not?
It does
Okay.
not, no.
Because
We do
many
not allow
people-
you, no, we do not allow you to use.
Make a contribution.
It doesn't go towards your pensionable earnings. You can't even use
Oh, that's a good point.
your vacation time to extend your employment. So
Oh,
like you
okay.
can't say, my last day of work is March 15th, I'm going to take vacation and retire on April 1st. We do not allow that. But it's a cost.
Right.
So, and I do honestly think that, if we implement that with the non-represented employees, it helps our case in negotiating that with the union employees.
Do you think that you would have enough in the excess salary contingency to take care of all the non-reps that you want to pay down?
I think so. I'm working on that exact amount right now. It's just a point in time, so we just need to develop our strategy of
when do we tell employees, how much time do we give them to use it?
If they're watching, they're
or-
hearing it now.
Yeah, choose to use it or choose to hang on to it and get paid, and then determine when that cutoff date, what is the
Yep.
actual amount. But I think we'll be pretty close with what's left in the employee salary set aside.
Okay.
Do you remember from last year what that number was that you suggested, just roughly?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
This only applies to non-representative.
Right, because the Board of Selectmen can vote to make that change for non-represented employees. We have to negotiate it with the other unions. But it'd be hard to say to a union, we want to take this benefit away from you when we're still giving it to the higher.
No, I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that the numbers in this thing called accrued leave, that's because that's really union people that have these carryovers, right?
No, it's non-union people. It's me, it's Jen.
It's everybody.
It's everybody.
And a lot of people in the police department?
Yes, the police department are the one, their vacation is not an issue because they can only carry five days over.
Okay.
But they have comp time that they can get paid out for. And some of them have longer-term employees. If you were hired before a certain date, you might get paid out for some portion of your sick time as well.
Got it. Okay.
So,
Okay.
there any other questions on the benefits? You know, things like Social Security, you know, that's a calculation based off of what our wage budget is. You good? Then risk management, these are all our liability and property insurances. Our rates have stayed flat, and you know, any increases we see are a result of value increases, but we're actually able to reduce the budget because we were higher this year than we ended up, what our actuals are, you know, ended up being, so.
I'm curious why we don't show in the revenue here the employee or the member equity payout from Kerma.
Because when we get that, it would go it would go in, but we don't budget for it. It typically comes after the year from which it applies. So on the matching principle.
Yep.
So where does it go to?
Oh, it goes, well, when we know it's coming, when we can reasonably estimate it. It would go, we put it in the insurance recovery account?
No, I think it goes.
Miscellaneous revenue?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We get $5,000
Oh.
for the last 5 years.
It was a big number.
Nice.
Now, our workman's comp going down, is that a question of experience?
Yes.
Excellent. Do you have a blended rate for workman's comp?
No.
No.
We, you know, we have a variety of rates. They come in, they audit us every year because, you know, two gentlemen who just left us, they're a heck of a lot more expensive than Jen and I are when it comes to workers' comp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it really varies. So anybody who actually leaves the building goes out into the field, so the assessor, the building inspector, fire marshal, they're all a higher rate than somebody who stays in the office.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe there's a blended overall rate.
No. Nope.
I know you don't get charged that way, just curious.
Yep.
It's really good news on the
Yeah.
insurance renewals.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, it has been.
Really good news.
The last item in here is the contingency accounts. So, you know, notice that there's never any money spent out of there. It's because it's always transferred to other accounts where it's spent from there. So you know, you can't make comparisons like that. I will tell you that I think Jen and I will be recalculating the proposal for the salary set aside based on the data I was talking about earlier that we got today from CCM on the salary settlement statewide. I think the number that we had originally estimated is a little too high. It's not 3%, but I think we can knock it back.
I'm sorry, can you give a little bit more color on what we're doing with this line?
With the set aside? So that's where we put, so we, in June, I'll present to you a proposal for the non-represented employees' wage plan.
Okay.
So what we present to the Board of Selectmen is the percentage amounts that, you know, if somebody who gets the outstanding rating, what percentage increase we propose for them. We don't actually, you know, talk about individual evaluations, but we make an estimate at the start of the year what the average will be, and that goes into that account. If we have open union contracts, we also make an estimate of what a settlement is likely to be, and we put that in there. So I don't talk to you, you know, if you want to give me a call, I'm happy to tell you what we're putting in there, what percentage it's based on, but we won't talk about it in public.
Yeah.
But it's not 3%.
Just for my education, the Board of Finance, 400 number, that's a target threshold that they set.
Yes, and, you know, it's been at 400,000 for quite a while. It has been sufficient most of the time. There's been some years, in particular when the Board of Education needed additional funding where it wasn't sufficient. But we also try and save that to, you know, don't piddle it away during the year on little accounts. We try and force department heads, if you need to transfer, find the funds within your own department. This is for the big stuff. This is for the really unpredictable stuff. It's for the bad winter when, you know, Ed's estimating 18, you know, these number of snowstorms, and we really get walloped. It's for when our legal expenses explode because of lawsuits. You know, it's for those things.
So it would be interesting to see an inventory of utilization to see what percentage of this fund over time was utilized by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, because we don't attribute any of this fund, you know, it's not funded from the Board of Education budget.
No.
Right?
No. It's rare that we would have them need additional funds and that this would be the source, because usually if they need additional funds, we're not talking small numbers. You know.
Right. Okay. But you mentioned the Board of Education a few moments ago.
Well, that's what I said. This has been sufficient most of the time. The only times it has not been sufficient are times when we've needed to give the Board of Ed additional money, and then the $400,000 hasn't been enough.
Okay.
When was the last time that?
Yeah, I'd say a good 10 years ago.
I was about to say, because I don't recall it for some time, and I think that was special ed, and we also set up a special ed fund that was running about $250, and then during the time that Murray was chair, drew that down to 100.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, I remember a budget where it might have been even under Peter Hovell as the chairman, where they said, you know, don't come back again.
Well, I know.
So it was a good long time ago.
I just want to make sure it's predominantly utilized for Board of Selectmen budget.
I can't think of the last time it was used for Board of Education.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't recall any.
Yeah. Just a point of note for Krista. The employee salary has just been implemented on the Board of Ed budget this year, and I applauded them for doing something that the town side has been doing for quite some time. And I think it's a good practice. And
You're talking about the accrual, right?
The accrual, right. And I suggested that Rich speak to Kate, because if certain funds aren't used at the end of the year, it can be put on the balance sheet, but that's for them to discuss.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is come June 30th, 2021, if we have not settled the Public Works contract, we would accrue the funds that are in this account that are intended for the settlement. We would accrue them, so we would debit expense, credit, accrued payroll, save the money out on the balance sheet, so that when we do settle, these funds are available to pay that part of the retroactive pay that is attributable to this fiscal year. It helps us get the expenses charged to the year in which they were incurred.
Okay, any questions about those two cost centers? Will we review, or just review on our own, your tabs on debt service? See if anyone has any questions on those. We're not scheduled to discuss them, so.
We're not scheduled. Well, mostly it's because it is what it is.
Exactly. I feel like we should look at it, be aware.
But you know
of it.
what? Yeah. We should look at it, and so maybe for Monday's meeting, we can send out the proposed new debt.
Yeah, we can do
that.
Okay, great.
Because it does include, when I say it is what it is, usually it's just, this is our existing debt service, and you don't really have much of a choice. But there is a proposal for a new debt issuance to cover some of the construction at the schools, at Highland Farm. These are things that have already been approved, and for Ox Ridge. I can tell you they're 20-year bonds. Estimate is 2.5% interest cost with level principal payments.
Okay.
But, you know, if Jen can provide the schedule that has the specifics on each issue.
Okay. And Dan, I'll give you a little preview that I have a list of capital items totaling $1.88 million for the Board of Finance consideration on funding in a different way, either
Funding
cash or...
outside of the operating budget.
Correct.
Great.
Okay.
And Kate, you said you have a request for a new bond proposal. Where's that request come from? From you guys?
Right,
Okay,
so
all right.
once it's
You're
authorized,
requesting
then
it.
we
Okay, got it. That's
figure out
what
the
I-
timing of the issue.
Perfect, thank you.
But Board of Finance has the final say on the actual structure of the debt.
Right, so
Or
it's up to
obligation.
Jen to propose.
That's all, I was just,
Yeah.
where's the
Yeah, and then
genesis of the request? It's,
you just wait, you're going to have fun when that discussion comes up. I think those can be some of the most interesting things that the Board of Finance does is evaluating what structure to use. And
Jen, quick question. Out of the list of authorized but unissued or need, in addition that any of these funds will be expiring from when they're supposed to?
No.
Okay, anything else for this evening? No. All right, if not, we are adjourned, and we will meet again to discuss budgets on Monday evening, February 3rd at 7 p.m.